The woman from Central Star Motors called me at 9:12 on a Tuesday morning and asked if I still had the paper title to my blue Ford. My name is Harold Anderson, and I'm 64 years old. What city are you listening from? I was standing under a Freightliner with a socket wrench in my hand. Oil had worked past my glove and down my wrist. For a second, I thought she had the wrong Harold Anderson. I said, "Which Ford?" "The 1978 F-150. We're showing you as the lane holder." I slid out from under the truck and sat up too fast. My shoulder hit the frame. The woman kept talking. "We'll need the original title, your payoff figure, and a signed release before we can complete the transfer. Who brought you that truck?" There was a short pause. I heard keys clicking on her end. "Kevin Anderson." That was my son. I looked across my detached garage at the empty space beside the workbench. The blue Ford hadn't been parked there in 3 years, but I still looked at that spot whenever anyone mentioned it. I said, "Did Kevin tell you I'd agreed to release the lien?" He represented the vehicle as available for sale. That wasn't my question. "No, sir, he didn't provide a release. Have you paid him? Purchase funds are being held until we clear the title." That answer mattered, though I didn't yet know how much. I wiped my hand on a red shop rag. "Don't release anything. I need to check my records." "Of course." "Mr. Anderson, the vehicle is already here, already there." Kevin hadn't called to ask. He hadn't warned me. He hadn't even given me the chance to hear his version before a stranger did. 3 weeks earlier, he'd told me the advertisement was only there to see what people might offer. Now the truck was sitting at a dealership with its keys in somebody else's hand. I told the clerk I would call her back. Then I stood in the middle of my garage and listened to the Freightliner's engine tick as it cooled. To explain why that phone call felt the way it did, I need to go back to the truck itself. Dawn found it in the spring of 2018. She came into the kitchen carrying her phone and wearing the look she got when she'd already made a decision, but planned to let me discover it slowly. She was 54 then. I was 56. She set her phone beside my coffee. On the screen was a faded blue pickup sitting in a patch of weeds outside Belton. The hood was crooked. One headlight was missing. The passenger door was a different color. I said, "That thing has been returning to the earth for 20 years. Dawn pulled out a chair. "The frame looks straight. You can't see the frame. I asked for more pictures. Of course you did." She smiled. "The man says the engine turns. Every seller says that. It means he found a long enough breaker bar." The truck was a 1978 Ford F-150. It had rust around the rear wheel openings and enough mouse nesting under the seat to fill a grocery bag. The engine did turn, barely. The transmission fluid smelled burned. The brake pedal went straight to the floor. Dawn walked around it twice. Then she opened the glove box and found an old registration folded behind the owner's manual. She said, "It deserves better than this. I should explain something about my wife." Dawn didn't get sentimental about everything. She threw away birthday cards after a month. She returned gifts she didn't need. She could clear a closet in 20 minutes and never look back. But old machines got to her. She liked proof that worn things could still be useful. We paid cash for the truck and hauled it to our place on East Barton Avenue. I put it in the detached garage. Dawn placed a cheap black notebook on my workbench and wrote the date on the first page. Every part went into that notebook. So did every mistake. She found a bench seat in Waco through a man who was parting out another Ford. She located the correct trim at a swap meet. When I ordered the wrong weather stripping, she wrote, "Harold trusted the picture instead of reading the measurements." I drew a line through that sentence. She wrote it again, underneath. Most evenings she sat on a stool while I worked. She handed me tools, cleaned bolts in a coffee can, and asked questions that were smarter than some mechanics liked admitting. "What happens if we reuse that bearing? It'll make noise." "When?" "Could be tomorrow, could be next year." She looked at me over her glasses. "Then replace it now." We finished the truck in 2020. Dawn chose a deep blue that looked almost black under the garage lights. In sunlight, it turned bright along the edges. The first time we drove it through Temple, she kept one hand on the dashboard as if she could feel every repaired part working beneath it. At a traffic light, she said, "You know Kevin's going to want this. He can want it. He's your son. He can still want it." She laughed and rolled down the window because the air conditioner wasn't keeping up. Dawn died 2 years later at 58. After the funeral, I spent a lot of time in the garage without doing much. I'd unlock the side door, turn on the lights, and sit on her stool. Her notebook stayed on the workbench. I couldn't move it. Kevin came by more often then. He was 32 and trying to keep his welding business steady. Some weeks he had more jobs than he could handle. Other weeks, his phone barely rang. He'd stand beside the Ford and run his hand over the fender. One evening he said, "Mom always thought I'd end up with it." I looked at him. "She said you'd want it." "That's basically the same thing." "No, it isn't." He dropped his hand. I didn't mean anything by it. I believed him. Or I chose to. The following year, I agreed to sell him the truck. I didn't give it away because Kevin had a habit of caring more for things when he had to pay for them. We wrote up an installment agreement, nothing fancy, the total, the monthly payment, and what happened if he stopped paying. I kept a purchase money lien on the truck. It was recorded with the title, and I kept the paper certificate in the lockbox under my workbench. When Kevin finished paying, I'd sign the release. He understood that. He signed every page at my kitchen table. Megan sat beside him and tapped one fingernail against her coffee mug. She was 31 then. She asked, "Why do this like strangers?" Kevin said, "It's fine. I'm asking your dad." I folded my copy of the agreement, because clear arrangements keep people from becoming strangers. She gave me a polite little smile. "That sounds like something from a hardware store sign." Kevin laughed. I did too, though I hadn't meant it as a joke. For the first year, the payments came on time. Kevin drove the truck to estimates and local jobs. People remembered it. He said it helped customers trust him because he looked established. Then business slowed. In early 2025, he called and asked if he could skip one payment. "I've got 2 commercial invoices outstanding," he said. "Once they come in, I'll catch up." I told him that was fine. The next deferment involved a welding machine that needed a control board. After that, Megan needed money for licensing and design software for the renovation business she wanted to start. Each reason sounded temporary by itself. That was how I handled it. One temporary problem at a time. I'd mark the missed payment in my ledger, write deferred beside it, and move on. When Kevin needed brake work, I did it in my garage and charged him for parts only. When his work trailer needed new bearings, I spent a Saturday installing them. He always said, "I owe you." I always answered, "Just keep moving." By the summer of 2026, the words had stopped matching the numbers. Kevin would make one payment, miss 2, then send half of one without saying what it was for. Megan had started talking as if the unpaid balance didn't really count. One Sunday afternoon, she came over carrying a folder and set it on my kitchen counter. "I brought you some information," she said. The folder contained brochures for senior financial services, automatic bill payment, and something called family account support. I looked at the photographs. Every person in them had silver hair and wore a beige sweater. I said, "Did I miss an appointment?" Megan opened the first brochure. "It's just planning. Kevin worries about you handling everything alone. I handle payroll records for 2 small fleets. I think I can manage my electric bill. Nobody said you couldn't. You brought me a folder that says otherwise." She closed it. "You're being defensive." Kevin stood near the refrigerator, studying a magnet like he'd never seen one before. I said, "Was this your idea?" He rubbed his jaw. "We were just trying to help." "With what?" Neither of them answered that directly. Megan took the folder home, but one pamphlet stayed behind. I found it later beside my mail tray. A week after that, my bank statement didn't arrive. I assumed it was late. Then I noticed 2 utility envelopes were missing too. When I asked Kevin, he said he'd picked up some mail because the box had been hanging open. "You could have told me," I said. "I'm telling you now." "Where is it?" "In my truck, I think." "Bring it back," he sighed. "Dad, it's mail. I didn't steal your lawnmower." I waited until he looked at me. "Bring it back." He returned it the following morning. Every envelope was still sealed. That settled the immediate question, but not the one underneath it. Why had my grown son decided my mail was his to collect? The next Saturday, I went out to my garage before sunrise. I made coffee, opened the side door, and worked through the truck account from the first payment to the last. The unpaid balance was $9,600. I checked it twice. Then I opened the steel lockbox. The paper title was inside, along with the signed agreement. My lien was recorded correctly. Nothing was missing. That was my first small relief. I didn't plan revenge. I didn't plan a confrontation. I put everything back and locked the box. Around noon, a man I knew from a parts counter sent me a link with one line above it. "Isn't this yours?" The advertisement showed the Ford parked beside a new storage facility. The paint looked almost purple in the shade. There were 12 photographs, including one of the engine bay and another of Dawn's restored bench seat. The asking price was $21,000. The description said, "Clear Texas title." I read that part 3 times. Then I called Kevin. He answered on the 4th ring. There was wind behind him. I said, "Why is the Ford listed for sale?" He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I'm testing the market. You wrote clear title. That's what people expect to see." "It isn't true. I know you have the paper. You also know there's a lien." He lowered his voice. "I haven't sold anything." "Did Megan write the listing?" "Why does that matter?" "Because I'm asking you." He exhaled hard. "We talked about it together." "Take it down." "Dad, come on. We need to know what it's worth. You can find that out without advertising something you haven't paid for." His tone changed then. It got flatter. "Mom helped build that truck for me." I stood at the workbench with Dawn's notebook 6 inches from my hand. I said, "Your mother helped build it with me. Don't turn her into an answer she never gave." He didn't speak. Then Megan's voice came through in the background. "Tell him nobody's taking anything from him." Kevin said, "Nobody's taking anything from you." I looked at the advertisement again. "Take it down by tonight, and if I don't?" That question told me more than his explanation had. I opened my ledger and found the line for his next payment. "The standing grace is over," I said. "The agreement goes back to its written terms." He gave a short laugh. "You're serious?" "Yes." "Over an online listing? Over what the listing says?" Megan said something I couldn't make out. Kevin covered the phone, but not well enough. I heard her say, "He won't follow through." Kevin came back on the line. "I've got to go. Take it down." He ended the call without answering. I saved every photograph from the listing. Then I printed the page and wrote the date and time across the bottom. Before I left the garage, I checked the lockbox one more time. I put the title beneath the ledger, turned the key, and slipped it onto my own key ring instead of hanging it beside the workbench. The listing disappeared that evening. I checked before bed, then again the next morning. The page returned an error. That should have settled me, but it didn't. Kevin hadn't called to say he removed it. He hadn't answered my question about what he planned to do. He had simply made the evidence harder to see. 2 days passed. On Thursday afternoon, I heard the Ford before I saw it. The exhaust had developed a dry tapping sound. Kevin pulled into my driveway and back toward the garage like he'd done it 100 times. He climbed out wearing his welding shirt. One cuff had a fresh burn hole. I stood in the garage doorway. "What's making that noise?" "That's what I was hoping you'd tell me." He smiled a little, trying to step back into our usual routine. I waited. He looked toward the workbench. "You busy?" "I have work." "Right now?" "The garbage truck behind you needs an air leak fixed." He glanced at it. "I can come back." "You're already here." That was all it took. I moved my tools off the center bay and waved him in. Kevin drove the Ford inside. The blue hood passed under the lights, and for a moment I saw Dawn's hand resting on it. She used to wipe dust with the side of her palm, then complain that I hadn't cleaned properly. Kevin shut off the engine. I got down on a creeper and rolled under the passenger side. He crouched beside the front wheel. "What do you think?" he asked. "Start it." He started the engine. The tapping came from a loose exhaust flange. One bolt had backed out, and the gasket was beginning to fail. I slid back out. "It needs a gasket and new hardware." "How bad?" "Not bad if you do it now." He nodded toward my parts cabinet. "Do you have one?" I did. That cabinet was part of the problem. Over the years, I'd built up shelves of filters, fittings, clamps, wire, seals, hoses, and hardware. If Kevin needed something, I usually had it. If I didn't, I knew where to get it before closing time. I opened the second drawer and found a gasket that matched. Kevin smiled. "I knew you would. It sounded affectionate. It also sounded like inventory control." I held the gasket in my hand. "Did Megan write the advertisement?" His smile went away. "I told you we both talked about it." "That wasn't what I asked." He leaned against the fender. "She wrote it. Why did it say clear title?" "She copied another listing." "Did she know there was a lien?" "She knew there was paperwork left." "Paperwork left?" Kevin looked toward the open garage door. "That's how she sees it." "And how do you see it?" He rubbed the burn hole on his cuff. "I know what I signed." That was the first direct answer he'd given me. It didn't fix anything, but it gave me one piece of truth. I set the gasket on the workbench. "Why sell it?" "We're not selling it. Why advertise it? To see what someone would pay. You knew what people would pay before you took pictures. He said nothing. I waited him out. Finally, he said, Megan's trying to get her business moving. She already told me that. She needs working capital. How much? I don't know. You've discussed selling the truck, but you don't know how much she needs? He pushed away from the fender. This is why I didn't want to get into it. You drove here, for the exhaust. There it was. He had come for help, not a conversation. I could have told him to leave. Instead, I picked up 2 wrenches and handed him one. Get under there. He stared at the wrench. You're doing the work, I said. I'll show you. He lay on the creeper and rolled under the truck. I stood beside him and pointed through the wheel opening. Hold the flange steady. Don't force the old bolt. If it snaps, you'll make a 20-minute job into 2 hours. He grunted as he pulled. Not like that. I barely touched it. You leaned your whole shoulder into it. That's barely for me. I almost laughed. So did he. For the next half hour, we sounded like ourselves. I told him where to place the wrench. He complained about the angle. I told him machines didn't care about his comfort. When the new gasket was in, he started the engine. The tapping was gone. Kevin listened, then nodded. That's better. Check it again after a few heat cycles. I will. He wiped his hands and looked toward the refrigerator I kept in the corner. You got any water? I tossed him a bottle. He caught it. You charging me for the gasket? Yes. His eyebrows rose. It's $18. You serious? Very. He took out his wallet. I don't have cash. Send it later. He slid the wallet back into his pocket. I heard myself and stopped. Send it later. That was how almost everything between us worked. Later was where his payments went. Later was where my boundaries went too. I pulled a grease pencil from the workbench and wrote $18 on the whiteboard beside the parts cabinet. Kevin watched me. You're keeping a shop tab now? I'm keeping track. All right. He said it lightly, but his mouth tightened. I closed the parts drawer. Your next truck payment is due Monday. I know. The grace period is over. I heard you the first time. Then we understand each other. He finished his water and dropped the empty bottle in the trash. At the garage door, he stopped. You want us to come over Sunday? That question caught me off guard. Usually I invited them. Usually I also bought the food, cleaned the kitchen, and sent leftovers home in containers I never saw again. I said, if you want to, I'm asking. All right, come around 5. He nodded once and left. I stood in the driveway while the Ford turned onto East Barton Avenue. The exhaust sounded clean. For the rest of that afternoon, I worked on the garbage truck. I found the air leak behind the rear tank, replaced a cracked line, and tested the system twice. That kind of work made sense to me. Something leaked. You found it. You cut out the failed section. You put in one that could hold pressure. Family didn't tell you where the leak was. On Sunday, I bought chicken thighs, potatoes, green beans, and a loaf of bread. I set the table for 3. At 4:40, Megan texted that they were running late. At 5:20, she said they were leaving soon. They arrived at 6:12. Kevin carried a store-bought pie. Megan brought a laptop bag. Sorry, she said. I had a call with a potential client. I took the pie from Kevin. Food's in the oven. Megan set her bag on Dawn's old chair. I looked at it. She noticed. Do you need this seat? Yes. She moved the bag without apologizing. Dawn had sat in that chair every night for almost 35 years. It wasn't expensive or special. One spindle had been glued twice. I knew Megan didn't think about it that way. That was part of what bothered me. She didn't need to be cruel. She could make a place feel changed without noticing she'd touched it. We ate at 6:30. Kevin told me about a railing job for a medical office. Megan described a house she wanted to renovate near downtown Temple. It's not a full renovation, she said, mostly cosmetic. Flooring, paint, kitchen fronts, fixtures. Is it your house? I asked. It would be a client project. So the client pays for materials. Eventually? I put down my fork. Eventually? Megan glanced at Kevin. He drank his tea. She said, some contractors front early costs. It helps close the job. Established contractors can do that. I'm trying to become established. That's why you get a deposit. The owner doesn't want to pay one until I show progress. Then the owner doesn't have enough money for the work. Her face hardened. Not everybody thinks like a mechanic. No. A mechanic keeps the vehicle until the bill is paid. Kevin stared at his plate. Megan pushed a green bean through the sauce from the chicken. I'm not asking you for business advice. What are you asking? I'm explaining why we looked at options. The truck. She glanced at Kevin again. I said, if you want something from me, ask directly. She leaned back. Fine. Would you consider treating the remaining truck balance as Kevin's inheritance from his mother? Kevin looked up. Megan. What? He told us to ask. I folded my napkin and set it beside my plate. You're asking me to erase what Kevin owes. I'm asking you to recognize what Dawn wanted. You didn't ask Dawn. I knew her. You knew her for 8 years. I was married to her for 37. Kevin said, can we not do this? Megan turned to him. You said she wanted you to have it. She did, he said quietly. I looked at him. She said you'd want it. He rubbed both hands over his face. Dad, it was a conversation. Nobody recorded it. No. She wrote things down. The room went still. Dawn's restoration notebook was out in the garage. Megan knew about it. Kevin had seen it for years. Neither of them knew every page. Megan said, did she write that the truck was yours forever? No. Then what does the notebook prove? It proves she was careful with her words. Kevin stood and carried his plate to the sink. I said, sit down, we're talking. I don't want to be in the middle. You signed the agreement. You are the middle. He turned around. Why does everything have to be an agreement with you? That landed harder than Megan's question. I looked at the food I'd cooked. I looked at the pie he'd brought because he knew I liked apple. I looked at Dawn's empty chair. Because when things aren't clear, I end up paying, I said. Kevin shook his head. You offered? He was right. Not about the truck. Not about erasing the balance. But about enough other things that I couldn't dismiss him. I'd offered to repair his first welding rig. I'd offered to cover his shop rent when 2 customers paid late. I'd offered to replace tires on his work truck. I'd offered every time he sounded tired, worried, or embarrassed. Often he hadn't even asked. I would hear a problem and solve it before he had to. Then I'd tell myself we were close because he called. Sitting there, I had to consider how many of those calls would have happened if I'd had no tools, no spare parts, and no checkbook. Megan broke the silence. Nobody makes you pay for anything. I looked at her. That's true. She seemed surprised I'd agreed. I stood and began clearing the table. Kevin said, Dad, I'm listening. He pulled out his phone. I'll send the gasket money. This isn't about $18. I know. His phone made a soft sound. Mine buzzed on the counter. He had sent exactly $18. It was a small thing, almost stupidly small. Still, it was the first amount he'd paid without making me remind him twice. I put the plates beside the sink. The truck payment is still due tomorrow, I said. He nodded. I know. Megan closed her laptop bag, though she'd never opened it. We should go. Kevin looked at her. We just got here. We've been here over an hour. She picked up the bag and headed for the door. Kevin stayed behind long enough to wrap 2 pieces of pie. At the door, he said, I didn't know she was going to ask you like that. You knew she wanted the balance gone? Yes. Do you? He looked out at the driveway. I want things to be easier. That's not an answer. It's the one I have tonight. He left with the pie. I washed the dishes and dried them by hand. Dawn used to say the dishwasher wasted time because I rinsed everything too well before loading it. When the kitchen was clean, I went to the garage. I opened her notebook and read the pages from the final week of the restoration. There were paint codes, a list of missing clips, and a note reminding me to tighten the passenger mirror. Near the bottom of one page, Dawn had written, Kevin drove it today. Came back grinning. Harold pretended not to notice. Nothing about giving it to him. Nothing about keeping it from him either. Just what had happened. I closed the notebook and sat on her stool. My phone rang at 8:40. It was Kevin. I answered. He said, I can't make the full payment tomorrow. How much can you make? Half. When can you pay the rest? I don't know yet. In the past, I would have filled the silence for him. I would have offered another week or changed the subject. This time, I waited. Finally, he said, Can I pay half tomorrow and give you a date for the rest by Friday? It was the first direct request he'd made. Yes, I said. Put the request in a text and I'll answer it there. He was quiet. You need it in writing? I need us both to remember the same thing. All right. After we hung up, his message arrived. I read it, answered that one partial payment did not restore the old grace, and saved the exchange with the agreement. Then I took the spare garage key from the hook by the side door. Kevin had used it for years whenever he needed a tool or wanted to leave something inside. I slipped that key onto my ring beside the lockbox key. The next morning, Kevin sent half the payment at 7:16. At 8, I checked the electric account, water account, and bank statement. Every bill had been paid on time. Nothing was overdue. Nothing had been paid twice. I printed the last 6 months and put the pages in a folder. I wasn't expecting a fight. I wanted facts within reach. Around 10, I called the electric company and changed the account password. I did the same with water and internet. Then I added a spoken security word to my bank account. The woman at the bank asked, "Would you like to list a trusted contact?" "No. You can add one without giving them access." "I understand. Leave it blank." When I finished, I opened the mailbox and found an envelope addressed in handwriting I didn't recognize. Inside was a letter confirming an appointment for that afternoon with a senior living consultant. I read the first line twice. The woman's name was Linda Carr. The letter said she would meet me at my home to discuss household support, financial organization, and future care preferences. I hadn't made an appointment. The letter included a phone number. I started to call and cancel. Then I stopped. Someone had arranged for a stranger to come into my house. I wanted to know what that stranger had been told. At 2:55, a silver sedan parked at the curb. A woman carrying a leather folder walked up my driveway. She looked to be in her 50s, though she never stated her age. I met her on the porch. "Mr. Anderson?" "Yes, I'm Linda Carr. We spoke through your family." "No, you spoke to my family." Her smile held, but only just. "May I come in?" "What exactly are you here to do?" She glanced at her folder. "I conduct planning visits. We talk about daily routines, home safety, bill management, transportation, and long-term preferences." "Who hired you?" "There's no charge for the initial visit." "That wasn't what I asked." She looked toward the street, then back at me. "Your daughter-in-law completed the intake form. Your son confirmed the appointment." That answer settled one question and opened several others. I stepped aside. "You can come in for 20 minutes. She entered the living room and looked around. The house was clean. Dawn's reading lamp stood beside the couch. My work boots were lined up near the kitchen door. Linda sat in the armchair and placed her folder on her knees. "Would you mind if I ask a few general questions?" "I might mind some of them." "That's fair." She took out a printed form. "What day of the week is it?" I looked at her. She gave an apologetic smile. "It's a standard question." "Monday." "And the date?" I told her. "Do you manage your own medications?" "I don't take any daily medication." "Your family indicated there had been some confusion." "About medication?" "About household management." I leaned back. "What kind of confusion?" She looked down at the form. Misplaced mail. Missed bills. Repeated questions. Difficulty remembering financial arrangements. I let her finish. Then I asked, "Which bills did they say I missed?" The form doesn't specify. Which questions did I repeat? It doesn't give examples. Who said I had difficulty remembering financial arrangements? She turned the paper slightly away from me. "I'm not here to challenge anyone's account. I'm here to understand your needs. You can't understand my needs without knowing whether the account is true. That's why we talk. Then show me the form." She hesitated. "This is an internal intake document. It has my name on it." "Yes?" "It describes my health and finances, in general terms." "Then show it to me." She kept one hand on the folder. "I'm not sure I'm authorized to release it." "Were you authorized to come into my house?" Her face changed. Not much, but enough. She had expected an older man who would answer questions. She hadn't expected one who would ask where the questions came from. I stood. "The visit is over unless I can see what was submitted about me." Linda closed the folder. "Mr. Anderson, I don't want this to feel adversarial. It isn't. You have information about me. I'm asking to read it." She studied me for a moment. Then she opened the folder again and removed 3 pages. "You can review it here. I can't leave the original." I took the pages. The first section contained my address, phone number, and date of birth. Megan had entered those correctly. The second section listed primary family contacts. Kevin was first. Megan was second. The section marked reason for concern had 4 boxes checked. Financial confusion, unopened or misplaced mail, resistance to family assistance, possible unsafe driving. I looked up. Unsafe driving, Linda said. That may refer to general concerns. I passed my commercial medical exam 4 months ago. You still drive commercially? I move customer vehicles. Some weigh over 30,000 pounds. She wrote something in the margin. I tapped the form. Who said I was unsafe? The intake doesn't attribute each concern. Who completed it? Your daughter-in-law. Then she said it. She selected the concern. That's the same thing in ordinary English. Linda didn't argue. At the bottom of the second page, Megan had written a short paragraph. Harold had become increasingly private about finances after Dawn's death. He refused help even when bills and mail were misplaced. He sometimes reacted with anger when Kevin tried to assist. The family wanted to establish a plan before a crisis occurred. I read it again. The wording was careful. It didn't call me confused. It described things that could make someone else wonder. My mail had been misplaced because Kevin took it. I'd reacted with anger because he acted as if taking it was nothing. The facts had been turned around without changing their names. Can I have a copy? I asked. Linda shifted in her chair. I'd need consent from the person who submitted it. It's about me. I understand. Do you? She met my eyes. Yes, I think I do. She took the pages back and looked at the paragraph herself. Then she reached into her bag for a small portable scanner. I can give you a client review copy, she said. You'll need to sign that you received it. I'll sign for what I receive. She scanned the pages and printed a lighter copy on thin paper. I read the receipt before signing it. That was the first deliberate thing I did that worked exactly as intended. I hadn't canceled the visit. I hadn't warned Kevin or Megan. I let the person arrive, asked who had arranged it, and obtained the words they'd used. The copy didn't tell me why they wanted those words on paper. It did tell me the visit wasn't casual. Linda packed her scanner. I want to be clear, she said. This isn't a medical evaluation. I know. I don't determine whether someone is competent. I didn't ask you to. Your family may simply be worried. Then they should tell the truth. She stood and handed me her card. If you want the file closed, call the office. Since you're the subject of the intake, you can decline services. Close it now. I can record that request. Please do. She wrote across the top page, then asked me to initial beside her note. I read it first. Client declined services and requested closure of intake. I initialed. At the door, she paused. For what it's worth, you're not the first person whose family described a disagreement as a safety concern. What usually happens next? That depends on the family. What happens with your company? We close the intake unless there's a direct safety issue. Do you see one? No. That was useful, but incomplete. She could close her folder. She couldn't tell me what Kevin and Megan planned after she left. I watched her car disappear down East Barton Avenue. Then I photographed every page she'd given me. I saved the images on my computer and put the paper copy with the bank and utility statements. At 3:40, Kevin called. Did Linda come by? He asked it too quickly. Yes. How'd it go? Why didn't you tell me she was coming? Megan said she mailed you something. A letter arrived today. So you knew. I knew a stranger planned to come to my house. I didn't know my son had confirmed it. He was silent. I said, Did you read the intake form? Not all of it. How much? Megan showed me the main part. The part saying I can't manage my bills. It didn't say you can't. The part about unsafe driving. Another silence. I told her not to include that, he said. That was the inconsistency I'd been listening for. You just said you didn't read all of it? I saw the boxes. Before or after it was sent? Dad, I don't remember. You remember telling her not to include one. He exhaled into the phone. She thought it would get them to take the visit seriously. So, you knew it wasn't true. I knew it sounded worse than it was. That means the same thing. No, it doesn't. I looked at Linda's copy on my desk. Why did you confirm the appointment? Because you won't talk about this stuff with us. What stuff? Your plans? The house? The garage? What happens if you get sick? I'm not sick. That's not the point. It seems to be the point on the form. He lowered his voice. Can you please not turn this into another contract argument? This has nothing to do with the truck agreement. You make everything about paperwork. Your wife filled out paperwork saying I might be unsafe. She was trying to help. Did you tell her I missed bills? No. Did you tell her you took my mail? He didn't answer. Kevin? I said I picked it up. To Linda? To Megan. Did Megan tell Linda? I don't know. I believe that part. Kevin knew enough to go along. He didn't know how the story changed after it left his mouth. I said, "The intake is closed. You canceled it?" I completed the visit and declined the service. "Why would you do that?" "Because I don't need it. Megan's going to think you're proving her point." I looked at my paid utility statements. "What point is that? That nobody can discuss anything with you? You and I are discussing it now. You know what I mean?" "No, I know what you're avoiding." He became quiet again. Then he said, "I've got to get back to work. Your payment arrived. Half of it." I saw. "I'll give you a date Friday. Put it in writing. I know." He ended the call. At 4:30, I drove to the post office. I brought identification and asked whether anyone had placed a hold, forwarding request, or alternate delivery instruction on my address. The clerk checked. "No forwarding order," she said. "No active hold. Can someone else collect my mail? Not unless you authorize it or hand it to them yourself." I didn't. She gave me a form to restrict pickup to identification matching my name and address. I filled it out at the counter. Then I bought a locking mailbox from a hardware store. By 6, I had removed the old box and mounted the new one on the same post. I tested the lock 3 times. The mail slot accepted an envelope, but nothing came back out without the key. While I was cleaning up the metal shavings, Megan pulled into the driveway. She got out and stared at the new mailbox. "You installed a lock?" "Yes, that's a little dramatic." "Why are you here?" "To talk about what happened today." I put the drill in its case. Linda closed the intake. "I know." She called me. "Then there's nothing to discuss. There's plenty to discuss. You made us look dishonest. You checked a box saying I might be unsafe to drive. I checked concerns. Was unsafe driving one of your concerns?" She crossed her arms. "You still crawl under trucks by yourself. That isn't driving. It's risk. Then write that. Don't write something else." She glanced toward the house. "Can we go inside?" "No." Her eyes narrowed. "You're locking us out now?" "I locked my mail." "You took Kevin's garage key too." That stopped me. "I hadn't told Kevin I'd removed the spare." I said, "How do you know?" "He tried it this afternoon." "Why?" "He needed a tool. He didn't ask." "He's your son. That isn't an answer." She stepped closer. "This is exactly what I was trying to prevent. You're cutting yourself off because someone suggested planning." I picked up the mailbox key. "Kevin has my phone number. So do you. That's not the same as being family." "No," I said. "It means being family requires knocking." She stared at me for a few seconds, then returned to her car. Before she shut the door, she said, "Kevin wants us all to sit down together Friday night." "About what?" "The future." She drove away without giving me anything more. I carried the drill case into the garage. On my desk, I placed Linda's intake beside Kevin's agreement. The truck had been one disagreement. Now, I had a Friday deadline and a family meeting I hadn't requested. Thursday morning, Kevin texted that he would give me an answer about the remaining payment at the meeting. I replied, "The answer and the payment are separate." He didn't respond. At lunchtime, he called while I was replacing a fuel filter. "You're making Friday sound like an ambush," he said. "I didn't call the meeting. Megan wants everyone to be prepared." "For what?" "To have an adult conversation." I've been available for one. He let out a tired breath. "Can you just listen tomorrow?" "I'll listen." "Are you paying the other half?" "I can't." "Why not?" "We had an expense." "What expense?" "It's personal." "You're asking me to carry it. That makes it my concern." He didn't answer right away. I tightened the filter by hand and waited. Finally, he said, "Megan committed to materials for that renovation job." "With money from your welding business, it's our money. Was it money you had set aside for bills? We move things around all the time. Did she move it before or after you promised me a date?" "She ordered the materials Tuesday. That was the day after his partial payment. Did you know?" "Not until yesterday." "Did the client pay a deposit?" "No." "So she used your business money to finance someone else's house. She's trying to build a name. And now you can't finish paying me. It's one payment." "No, it's the latest payment." He went quiet. I said, "Why didn't Megan tell me this Sunday?" "Because she knew how you'd react." "I would have told her not to spend money she didn't have." "Exactly." I rested one hand on the workbench. "Did you agree to sell the Ford to cover those materials?" "No. Did she?" "She can't sell it by herself." "That wasn't what I asked." He said, "We'll talk tomorrow." Then he hung up. I wrote down the time and what he'd told me. I didn't enjoy doing that. It felt unnatural to keep notes about my own son. Still, memory had become part of the argument. If I didn't record a conversation, someone could later call it confusion. Friday afternoon, I prepared the kitchen table before they arrived. I put the paid utility statements in one folder. Linda's intake was in another. I added the current truck ledger, Kevin's text requesting the partial payment, and the commercial medical certificate I carried for moving customer vehicles. I left Dawn's notebook in the garage. That document belonged to the restoration. I wasn't going to drag her into a meeting because Megan had already done it. Kevin and Megan arrived at 6. Megan carried a thick white envelope. Kevin carried nothing. She sat in Dawn's chair again. This time, I didn't ask her to move. I sat across from her and let the chair be a chair. Kevin took the seat between us. Megan placed the envelope on the table. "Thank you for agreeing to talk," she said. "I live here. You know what I mean." Kevin looked at the folders in front of me. "What's all that?" "Answers." Megan folded her hands. "This isn't supposed to be a trial." "Good. Then we won't need invented evidence." Her mouth tightened. Kevin said, "Dad, can we keep this calm?" "I am calm." He looked at Megan. "Go ahead." She opened the envelope and removed several printed pages. "We're concerned about the way you've been making decisions," she said. "Not one decision. A pattern. What pattern? You isolate yourself. You refuse reasonable help. You get suspicious when Kevin tries to do normal things. Like, take my mail?" He saw the box open. "Did he tell you he kept the mail in his truck?" Kevin spoke before she could. "I brought it back." I looked at him. "Why did you take it?" He shifted in his chair. "I thought I was helping." "Did I ask you to?" "No." "Were any bills missed?" "No," Megan said. "That's not the point. It was one of the concerns you submitted. I said mail was misplaced. It wasn't misplaced." Kevin knew where it was. She turned toward him. "You told me you found it scattered." "The box was open," he said. "Scattered where?" He rubbed the back of his neck. Some of it was leaning against the side. "Was any on the ground?" I asked. "No." Megan stared at him. That was the first time I saw her realize his version didn't support hers. I opened my first folder and placed the statements on the table. 6 months of bills, all paid. She barely looked at them. Financial problems don't always show up as missed bills. What do they show up as? Rigidity, paranoia, inappropriate reactions. I took out Linda's intake. Linda recorded no direct safety issue and closed the file at my request. You pressured her. I asked to see what you wrote. It was confidential. It was about me. Kevin reached for the copy. I handed it to him. He read the checked boxes. When he reached Megan's paragraph, he stopped. "You said he'd been missing bills," he said. "I said bills and mail were misplaced." "No." "You wrote it like he was forgetting them." She looked at him. "Are you on my side or not?" "That's not what I'm saying." "It sounds like it," I said. "There shouldn't be sides if the concern is my safety." Megan turned back to me. "You always do that." "Do what?" "Take one phrase and twist it until everyone else looks unreasonable." I put my medical certificate beside the statements. "I passed this 4 months ago." Linda saw no safety issue. "My bills are current." Kevin admits he took the mail. "Which concern remains?" She tapped the table with one finger. "You won't make a plan. For what?" "For the house, the garage, your finances. What happens if you get hurt? What happens if you start forgetting things? If that happens, we'll address it. That's not a plan. It's more of a plan than checking boxes that aren't true." Kevin finished reading and pushed the intake away. He looked at Megan. "You should have shown me the paragraph. I tried. You showed me the first page. You were busy. You asked me to confirm the appointment. And you did." He leaned back and looked at the ceiling. There was my partial answer. Kevin had agreed to the visit without knowing everything Megan submitted. He wasn't innocent. He had chosen not to read. That was different from being unaware. Megan reached into the envelope again. "Fine," she said. "Let's stop arguing over the intake." She placed another document in the center of the table. The top page had my full name printed beneath the words, "Proposed application regarding capacity and financial guardianship." There was no court stamp, no case number. Several sections were blank. I didn't touch it. Kevin looked at the page, then at Megan. "What is this?" "Something we need to discuss. You said you had planning forms." It is a planning form. No, I said, it's a draft petition. Megan faced me. It hasn't been filed. Who prepared it? I downloaded a sample and spoke to someone's office. Whose office? A lawyer who handles family planning. Does the lawyer know the claims are disputed? We didn't get that far. Kevin picked up the document. You never showed me this. I'm showing you now. You put my name here. His name appeared under proposed guardian, Megan said. Who else would it be? You can't put my name on this without asking. It's a draft. That doesn't answer me. I kept my eyes on Kevin. Did you know she was preparing a petition? No, Megan said. He knew I was looking at options. Kevin turned on her. Not this option. For the first time since the advertisement appeared, he sounded more alarmed than defensive. I pulled the draft toward me. The allegations were thin: missed correspondence, resistance to help, increased anger, poor financial judgment, unsafe work habits. Near the bottom, one sentence said I was refusing to complete necessary title and estate planning. I read it aloud. Kevin's eyes moved toward the truck ledger. I said, "Is the title planning the Ford?" Megan answered, "It's one example." Of what? Sentimental attachment affecting practical decisions. The truck isn't an estate. It was Dawn's work, too. So was this house. Her silence lasted half a second too long. Kevin looked at her. Why did you bring up the house? I didn't. He did. What did you tell the lawyer's office? I made a general inquiry. About Dad's house? About everything. Kevin stood and walked to the sink. He gripped the counter with both hands. I looked at the unfinished draft. It couldn't take my house, release my lien, or give Kevin control of anything, not as it sat on my table. But it showed me where Megan wanted the conversation to go. She didn't only want a payment forgiven. She wanted my refusal treated as evidence that I shouldn't be allowed to refuse. I turned the document around and slid it back to her. Here's my answer. I don't consent to financial management, guardianship, mail assistance, bill assistance, or anyone entering my garage without asking. Megan stared at me. You can't make a declaration and end the discussion. I just did. This proves you won't cooperate. With false statements? Correct. Kevin returned to the table, but didn't sit. I opened the truck ledger. The other half of Monday's payment remains due. I'll accept a written payment date. I won't defer anything else. Megan said, You're using the truck to punish us. I'm enforcing the agreement Kevin signed. You know he can't pay because we use the money for materials. You used it, we're married. Then both of you own that choice. Kevin flinched. Megan leaned forward. If you force this, he may have to sell equipment. That's his decision. Or sell the truck. Kevin looked at her. I said, He can't transfer clear title without paying the secured balance. Megan's expression stayed still. She didn't ask what the balance was. That told me she still didn't know. Instead, she said, You'd really block the sale over paperwork? I'd require the agreement to be honored. You'd embarrass your own son. Kevin said, Stop. She turned toward him. He needs to hear what he's doing. I said stop. The room went quiet. Kevin picked up the draft petition and held it out to her. You're not filing this. We should at least talk to the lawyer, not with my name on it. Then whose name? Nobody's. She took the pages from him. You're going to regret choosing a piece of paper over your family. Kevin looked down at the table. I waited for him to correct her. He didn't. That silence cost him more with me than the missed payment. I gathered my folders. This meeting is over. Megan pushed back her chair. We have an appointment Monday morning. Kevin looked at her. You made one? To understand our options. I'm not going. You don't have to. I can get information, I said. If anyone contacts me, I'll respond with the records on this table. She put the draft into her envelope. At the door, Kevin stopped beside me. I didn't know about that paper. You knew about enough of the steps that came before it. He lowered his eyes. I'll text you a payment date. Do that. After they left, I took photographs of the draft from the images I'd made while it sat on the table. I had photographed every page while Kevin and Megan argued at the sink. The pages weren't proof of a filed case. They were proof of intent and wording. At 9:11, Kevin sent a message. I can pay the rest in 2 weeks. I do not consent to the petition Megan showed us. I saved it. Then I wrote back. Payment due in 2 weeks. No further deferment. His reply came a minute later. Understood. I printed both messages and placed them with the title ledger. The meeting had answered the smaller question. They weren't preparing for my future. Megan was building a reason to override my present, and Kevin had helped until the method frightened him. By refusing, I had made sure they knew I saw it. Monday was no longer just their appointment. It was the day I would learn whether Kevin's written objection meant anything once Megan moved without him. At 8:14 Monday morning, Linda called me. "I wanted you to hear this from me," she said. "Your daughter-in-law asked us to reopen the intake. What did you tell her? That we can't provide services after the client declines them. Did she give you new information? She said your refusal showed increasing suspicion." "My refusal of your service?" "Yes." I leaned against the workbench. "That's convenient." Linda lowered her voice. She also asked whether our intake could support a guardianship application. "What was your answer?" "No. We aren't medical providers, and we made no finding about your capacity." "Did you give her anything in writing?" "I sent our standard explanation. Would you send me the same thing?" "I can do that." Her email arrived before we ended the call. It was one paragraph. The visit had been voluntary. No safety finding had been made. The closed intake did not assess legal capacity. That didn't end Megan's effort. It removed one piece she might have tried to use. I printed the email and put it in my folder. At 10, Kevin texted, "Can I bring the engine drive over?" An engine drive is a welder with its own motor. Kevin used his for jobs where there wasn't reliable power. It was heavy, loud, and necessary for half the work he did away from his shop. I replied, "What's wrong with it?" "It cranks but won't stay running. I need it tomorrow." I looked at the jobs on my board. I had a delivery van due before 4 and a pickup waiting on a starter. "Bring it at 5. You stay and help." His answer came immediately. "Thank you." He arrived at 4:48 with the Ford pulling his work trailer. The engine drive was strapped near the front. He waited in the driveway until I opened the garage. That was new. Usually he would have tried the side door first. I guided him while he backed the trailer beside the garage. We lowered the ramp and rolled the machine onto a steel cart. Kevin reached for my toolbox. I said, "Ask." He stopped. "Can I use your meter?" "Yes." He took it out and set it beside the machine. I checked the fuel first. The tank was half full. The filter was clean. The battery voltage was good. "Start it," I said. Kevin turned the switch. The engine caught, ran for 3 seconds, and died. He tried again. Same result. "Could be the fuel solenoid," he said. "Could be. That part's expensive. Then let's not buy it until we know." We removed the side panel. I had him hold the meter leads while I moved the harness. The voltage dropped whenever I pulled near the lower frame. "Again," I said. He cranked it. I moved the harness and the engine stayed running. Kevin looked at me over the machine. "Loose wire, bad ground." We shut it down. The ground strap looked secure, but corrosion had formed beneath the terminal where nobody could see it. Kevin said, "That's it? That's enough." I handed him a wire brush. He cleaned the frame while I inspected the strap. It was still good. We put it back with a thin coat of protective grease and tightened it. The engine started and kept running. Kevin stood with both hands on his hips, listening. "You just saved me about $600. No. I kept you from spending it before testing." He smiled. "Same result. No charge." He looked at me. I pointed to the wire brush. "You did the work. I diagnosed it. That would still cost money anywhere else. I'm not anywhere else." For a moment, neither of us spoke. I hadn't paid his bill. I hadn't bought a part. I had helped him use what he already owned. It felt different. Kevin tested the welding output on a piece of scrap. The arc held steady. He shut the machine down and began winding the leads. I said, "Did Megan go to her appointment?" His hands slowed. "Yes." "Was anything filed?" "No." "Did you go?" "No." "What did the lawyer tell her?" "I wasn't in the room." "What did she tell you?" Kevin laid the cable on the cart. "She'd need actual evidence, medical records, people who could describe things they'd seen. She doesn't have those. I know." "Does she?" "She thinks you'll eventually prove her right." I stared at him. He looked embarrassed by the words, even though they weren't his. I said, "Do you think that?" "No." "Then why are we still having this conversation?" "Because she thinks you're making decisions based on Mom. That's not incapacity." "I know." "Does the lawyer?" Kevin nodded. "That's why nothing was filed. There was the useful result I needed." The draft was still only a draft. Linda's visit couldn't support it. Megan had spoken to a professional and learned that disagreement wasn't evidence. The cost was that she now knew exactly what she lacked. I said, "Did she ask you to make a statement?" She asked me to write down things I'd noticed. What things? The mail. You changing the locks? You getting mad about the listing. Did you write it? No. Did you tell her why? I told her I'm not signing something that makes you sound confused. I nodded. Kevin looked toward the garage refrigerator. Can I get a water? Yes. He took one and leaned against the workbench. I said, "What happened with the advertisement? It's down." That isn't what I asked. He twisted the cap off. A dealership called Megan before we removed it. What did they want? To look at the truck. Did you take it there? No. Are you going to? He drank some water before answering. She set an appointment for Wednesday. You just told me you weren't selling it. An appraisal isn't a sale. That sounds familiar. His jaw tightened. I can get a number without accepting it. Why do you need their number? Because I need to know my options. You have an option. Finish the railing job, collect your payment, and pay what you promised. If the client pays on time, he expects you to finish on time. That's why I brought the welder. I watched him finish the water. He wasn't looking to sell because the truck had become inconvenient. He was looking because Megan had already spent money from his business, and he was afraid the next problem would leave him with nothing to move around. Does Megan know about the lien? I asked. She knows there's a balance. Does she know how much? No. Why not? Because every time I try to explain it, she says, "You'll forgive it." I won't. I know that now. Didn't you know it Friday? I knew you were serious. I didn't know how serious. I took the empty bottle from him and put it in the recycling bin. Tell the dealership about the lien before they spend time on an appraisal. I will. Not afterward. I heard you. A car door shut in the driveway. Megan walked into the garage without knocking. She saw the engine drive on the cart and Kevin standing beside it. I've been calling you, she said. My phone's in the truck. You said this would take 20 minutes. It needed testing. She looked at me. Did you fix it? We fixed it, Kevin said. For free, I assume. I closed the meter case. Kevin said, "It was a bad ground. That wasn't my question." I didn't charge him, I said. She gave a short laugh. Of course not, Kevin frowned. Why are you making that a problem? Because he does this every time. He makes you need him, then keeps a list. I looked at the folders on my desk. I didn't make the machine fail. You know what I mean? No. Say it directly. She pointed toward the engine drive. You helped just enough to stay in control. Kevin's face tightened. He got my welder running, and now you told him about Wednesday. He didn't answer. Her eyes moved from him to me. You did tell him. I wasn't hiding it. You didn't need his permission. I didn't ask. She stepped closer to the workbench. What else did you tell him? Kevin said that nothing was filed. Her expression changed. That was private. It was about him. It was a consultation I paid for. About him. She looked at me. I suppose Linda called you too. She confirmed the intake is closed. You've been busy. I answered what you started. Megan crossed her arms. You think collecting paper makes you untouchable. I think accurate paper keeps a disagreement from becoming a false history. She glanced at the steel lockbox under the bench. It was the first time I noticed her looking directly at it. Kevin noticed too. He said, Don't. I didn't do anything. You're staring at Dad's box. I'm standing in a garage. I stepped between her and the bench. You need to leave. Her face flushed. Seriously? Yes. I came for my husband. He can leave when he's finished loading. Kevin picked up the meter and handed it to me. Thanks for the help. You're welcome? We rolled the engine drive back onto his trailer. Megan stood near her car while Kevin strapped it down. I checked both straps myself, then made him add a safety chain. Helping him safely wasn't the same as rescuing him from every cost. When he finished, I said, Tell the dealership about the lien. Megan answered before he could. They can look up the title. That doesn't replace disclosure. They buy vehicles every day, Kevin said. I'll tell them. She turned toward him. Why are you promising him anything? Because there's a lien. You're the one selling the truck. I'm not selling it Wednesday. Then why are we wasting time going? To get a number. That's what we agreed. She opened her car door. What we agreed was to solve the problem. Kevin looked at me, then at her. We'll talk at home. Megan got into her car and drove away. Kevin stood beside the Ford with one hand on the trailer hitch. I meant what I said, he told me. It's an appraisal, then treat it like one. He nodded. Before he left, he took out his phone. I'll send you the payment date again. You already did. I want you to know I remember. He sent the message while standing in front of me. The deadline was still 2 weeks away. I watched his trailer lights disappear at the end of East Barton Avenue. Then I locked the garage and went inside. At 8:30, Megan sent me a message. You have no right to interfere with Kevin obtaining fair value for his property. I read it once and saved it. I didn't answer. The next message came 5 minutes later. If you contact the dealership, that will prove this is about control. I saved that one too. Until then, I hadn't planned to contact anyone. I had expected Kevin to disclose the lien like he promised. Now, Megan had warned me not to verify something I already had a right to know. Wednesday's appraisal had become more than a number. It was the next place where Kevin would choose which version of the truth he intended to use. At 8 Wednesday morning, Kevin was supposed to meet me at the garage. I had a refuse truck on the center bay with a cracked battery tray. The tray had pulled loose from its mount, and I needed Kevin to weld a new support before I could finish the electrical work. We'd arranged it the week before. He had the measurements and the steel cut. At 8:15, I called him. He didn't answer. At 8:27, I sent a text. Are you coming? At 8:40, he replied, running behind. I'll call. I worked around the missing support. I cleaned battery cables, replaced 2 damaged ends, and checked the charging system. At 10, the truck's owner called. Will it be ready by lunch? I'm waiting on one weld. You said this morning. That was the plan. He paused. I've got a route starting at 4. I'll have it ready. After we hung up, I called Kevin again. This time, Megan answered his phone. He's driving, she said. Where? You know where. The dealership? Yes. He was supposed to be here 2 hours ago. He has his own business, Harold. He agreed to weld a battery support. Well, plans changed. Put Kevin on. He's driving. I can hear the turn signal. Put me on speaker. There was movement on the other end. Then Kevin said, Dad, I'm sorry. I forgot about the truck. You texted that you were running behind. I thought I could get back in time. Did you bring the steel? It's at my shop. When will you be here? Megan said something too low for me to hear. Kevin answered, I don't know. I looked at the refuse truck sitting open in my bay. I promised this customer his truck by lunch. You shouldn't have promised before the weld was done. I felt that one in my jaw. You told me you'd do it. I said, I'm sorry. Call someone from your shop and have them bring the bracket. I don't have anyone there today. Then turn around. Megan's voice came through clearly. We have an appointment. I said, Kevin, are you turning around? He didn't answer. That was an answer. All right, I said. I'll handle it. I ended the call. There was one mobile welder in Temple I trusted for heavy brackets. I'd used him twice when Kevin was out of town. He could come, but he charged a rush fee. I agreed. Then I called the truck owner and moved the pickup to 2:30. He wasn't happy. I planned my whole day around noon, he said. I understand. The delay is mine. It wasn't entirely mine, but the promise had come from my shop. The mobile welder arrived at 11:40. He fabricated the support from material on his truck and welded it in place. The work was clean. The bill was $340. I paid it before he left. I could have passed some of that cost to the customer. I didn't. He hadn't chosen my subcontractor. The refuse truck left at 2:20. I finished before the revised deadline, but the owner didn't shake my hand like he usually did. He climbed into the cab and said, Next time, tell me before I move my route. I will. After he drove away, I stood over the empty center bay with the paid welding invoice in my hand. Kevin had cost me money before. Tires, rent, parts, missed payments. This was different. He had put my word at risk. At 3:12, he called. The appraisal took longer than we expected, he said. I sat at my desk. Did they make an offer? Yes. Did you accept it? No. Did you disclose the lien? I told them there was a balance with you. That isn't the same thing. They said their title people would check everything if we move forward. Did you say I hold the paper title? Megan was standing right there. I waited. He said, no. Why not? Because I knew what would happen. What would happen? You'd turn it into a lecture in front of everybody. I wasn't there. You know what I mean? No, I know you left out a fact because Megan didn't want it said. He spoke more quietly. The offer would solve a lot. For whom? For both of us. You'd get paid. How much? We haven't decided anything. That wasn't my question. I'm not discussing the offer until we decide. I looked at the mobile welder's invoice. You missed a job you agreed to do. I apologized. It cost me $340. Send me the bill. Can you pay it? Silence. I said, that's what I thought. I'll pay you when the railing client pays me. You already owe me a payment in 2 weeks. Then what do you want me to say? I want you to stop offering money you don't have. His voice sharpened. You act like I'm the only one who gets something from this. From what? From us working together? You call me when you need welding. You show customers my work. You like telling people your son handled it. That doesn't pay today's bill, I know. No, I don't think you do. He took a breath. Dad, you need me too. I almost argued. Then I looked at the steel shelf he'd built against the back wall. I looked at the brackets on my air compressor and the repaired hinge on the garage door. He had done those things. Sometimes I paid him. Sometimes he refused. Sometimes we traded work without discussing it. He wasn't wrong. I had treated every repair I did for him as generosity. I had treated every repair he did for me as family. That difference had let me keep a private count where I always came out ahead. I said, you're right. He didn't seem to know what to do with that. I've relied on you for welding. I won't do that without a written price and schedule again. That's not what I meant. It's what I mean. He sighed. You're turning us into strangers. No, I'm taking business out of the family relationship. That sounds like the same thing. It shouldn't. Megan said something near him. I could hear her voice, but not the words. Kevin covered the phone. When he returned, he said, she wants to know if you'll release the title if we sell. When the secured balance is paid, yes. Would you take less? No. You won't even hear the offer. The offer doesn't change what you owe. It changes what we have left. That's between you and the buyer. He laughed once without humor. So you get yours no matter what. I get what we agreed. And if the offer isn't enough for Megan's business after that, then the truck won't solve her problem. He became quiet. I could picture him in the Ford, Megan sitting beside him, both of them looking at the same dashboard Dawn had steadied with her hand on our first drive. A week earlier, I would have wanted him to reject every offer. I would have told myself I was protecting the truck, but I wasn't protecting it. Kevin had possessed it for 3 years. He drove it. He stored it. He insured it. The only thing connecting it to my garage was the balance and the title in my lockbox. If I tried to prevent every sale, I would have to keep extending payments. I would have to keep repairing it. I would have to treat the truck as mine whenever it mattered, and Kevin's whenever it cost money. That arrangement had already damaged all 3 of us. I said, listen carefully. I won't stop you from selling the truck. Kevin didn't speak. You can decide whether to keep it or sell it. That choice is yours. He said, what's the catch? The agreement stays in force. The lien must be paid in full before I release it. And that's final? Yes. Megan's voice came through. Get it in writing, I said. I heard her. Kevin sounded tired. Can you send that to me? I will. He paused. Dad, I am sorry about this morning. I know. I didn't mean to hurt your business, but you did. I'll pay the welding bill after you meet your existing payment. That could take a while. Then it takes a while. He was quiet again. Megan thinks we should take some space. Is that what you think? I think every conversation turns into money. Then call me when you don't need anything. His breathing changed. That's not fair. It's an invitation. It doesn't sound like one. I'm not asking for a task. I'm asking you to call. He didn't answer. Finally, he said, I'll talk to you later. We both knew that wasn't a promise. After the call, I wrote a short message. You may sell the Ford. Any sale remains subject to the recorded lien and full payment of the secured balance. I will release the lien after payment clears. I will not reduce or defer the balance. I read it twice before sending. Kevin replied, understood. A minute later, Megan sent her own message. That is not cooperation. It is control dressed up as permission. I didn't respond. I printed Kevin's reply and added it to the ledger. Then, I removed his name from the list of welders I called without a purchase order. That meant future jobs would cost me more. It also meant I couldn't depend on a family favor and pretend it wasn't part of our money problem. At 5, I locked the garage and carried Dawn's notebook to the kitchen. I opened it to the first page from 2018. Dawn had listed what we paid for the truck, the towing cost, and every part we already knew it needed. At the bottom she had written, we can save this if we're honest about the work. I ran my thumb beside the sentence, careful not to touch the ink. I'd been telling myself victory meant keeping the Ford in the family. It didn't anymore. If Kevin chose to sell it, the truck would leave. I had accepted that. What mattered now was whether he could make that choice without expecting me to erase its cost, and whether I could let him face the result without buying my way back into his life. At 6:20, Kevin sent one more text. Megan wants to move forward with the offer. I haven't agreed yet. I answered with one sentence. Whatever you decide, disclose the lien before you sign anything. He read it. This time, he didn't reply. The following morning, I called the county tax office. I didn't mention Kevin or Megan. I said I held a recorded lien on a truck sold through installments, and the registered owner might be considering a sale. The clerk asked for the vehicle identification number. I read it from my copy of the title. She checked the state record. The lien is active, she said. Can the owner transfer the truck without my release? Not with a clear title. What if he applies for a replacement certificate? The replacement would still show the lien. What happens if a dealership buys it? The dealer usually requests a payoff from the lien holder. Once the lien is paid, you provide the release and original title. That was what I understood when Kevin signed the agreement. I wanted to hear it from someone who processed transfers every day. I asked, does checking the record change anything? No, sir. Does it place a new hold on the truck? No. The existing lien is already part of the record. I thanked her and wrote down the time of the call. Then I made an appointment to pick up a certified copy of the title record that afternoon. It cost me $12. The copy showed Kevin as the registered owner and me as lien holder. It didn't give me a new right. It confirmed the one already there. I placed it behind the installment agreement in my folder. After that, I called the mobile welder who had repaired the battery support. I want to set up regular terms, I told him. Written estimate, arrival window, and invoice before the vehicle leaves. He agreed. The next time I needed a weld, I would pay the market price. I wouldn't build my schedule around whether Kevin felt like family that morning. 2 days later, that decision got tested. A delivery van came in with a broken exhaust hanger. The pipe had dropped against the rear axle. I could have called Kevin and asked him to stop by. Instead, I sent photographs to the mobile welder. He quoted the job in writing and arrived at the time he gave me. We finished the van before lunch. The owner paid and left without hearing a family excuse. It cost more than having Kevin do it. It also worked exactly as arranged. I taped the welder's card inside my parts cabinet. Friday afternoon, Kevin called. You've got somebody else doing your welding now? I hired someone for a job. He called my supplier looking for a piece of tubing. That happens in business. You could have called me, you were working, you don't know what I was doing. That's why I hired someone with an appointment. He went quiet. I said, did you call for a reason? I heard you checked the title. I looked at the certified copy on my desk. How did you hear that? Megan called the tax office. They told her about my call? No. She asked questions and the clerk said the record had been certified recently. I wasn't sure the clerk should have said even that. It didn't matter. Megan knew I had verified the lien. Kevin continued. She thinks you're trying to stop the sale. I told you in writing that I won't. Then why get a certified record? To confirm what any buyer will see. We already know there's a lien. You know. I know. Does the dealership? He didn't answer. I said, did you go back? No. Did you tell them the full truth? I haven't spoken to them. Has Megan? I don't know. That answer had become too common. You live with her, I said. That doesn't mean I hear every phone call. No, it means you can ask. He sounded irritated. Why are you making me report everything she does? Because she's acting about a truck you owe money on. It's in my name, subject to the lien. There, that tone. What tone? Like, I'm trying to steal it. I didn't say that. You don't have to. I leaned back in my chair. Kevin, if you decide to sell it honestly. If you decide to keep it, make the payments. I don't need an explanation beyond that. That's easy for you to say. It's also clear. You've got paper for everything. You signed the paper. He let out a short breath. Megan wants a payoff amount. Then you can request one in writing. I'm requesting it now. No. You're telling me Megan wants it. What difference does that make? You owe the balance. Ask me directly. He was silent for several seconds. Then he said, what is the current payoff? I looked at the ledger. Is there a sale pending? We're considering the offer. Have you accepted it? No. Has anyone signed a bill of sale? No. Then I'll prepare a written payoff when you tell me who is purchasing and where it should be sent. Why can't you just give me the number? You have your payment record. I don't know if you added fees. I haven't. Interest? No. Then what are you protecting? I'm making sure a real buyer receives a real figure tied to a real transaction. Megan's voice came from near him. He's hiding behind procedure. Kevin said, "You're on speaker." I gathered that. Megan spoke louder. "Why won't you tell us what you claim he owes? I'll provide a written payoff to Kevin or the buyer when there's an actual sale." He just asked. He said you wanted it. Then he answered my questions. "This is ridiculous," I said. "Kevin knows where every payment stands." Megan replied, "Clearly he doesn't. That's between the two of you." Kevin cut in. "Can everybody stop?" I waited. He said, "Dad, send the payoff to me." "What dealership made the offer?" He hesitated. Megan answered, "That's none of your business. Then there's no transaction for me to document." Kevin said, "I'll call you later." The call ended. I hadn't refused Kevin access to the balance. I'd refused to hand Megan a number while she kept the buyer hidden and called the lien paperwork. My strategy wasn't to chase the truck. It was to stay where the agreement put me and require direct requests. That worked once. An hour later, Kevin sent an email from his business address. "I am requesting a written payoff statement for the Ford. This is for evaluation of a possible sale. No sale has been accepted or signed." I prepared a response, but before I sent it, another email arrived. "Send it to me only. Do not copy Megan." I called him. He answered immediately. "Why can't she see it?" I asked. "She can. That's not what your email says. I just want to look at it first." "Why?" "Because she thinks the balance is lower." "How much lower?" "I don't know." "You do know." He spoke quietly. "She thinks most of it went away when you deferred the payments." "Deferred means delayed," I told her. "Did you show her the agreement?" "She says the original price was too high." "She sat at the table when you signed." "I know." "What are you planning to tell her when she sees the actual figure?" "I don't know yet." There it was again. I said, "I won't help you hide it from your wife. I'm not asking you to. You asked me not to copy her. I need one conversation without a document arriving before I can explain it." I considered that. The debt belonged to Kevin. Megan's misunderstanding had been useful to both of them. She got to plan around money they didn't have. He got to avoid telling her the plan didn't work. I said, "I'll give you until Monday morning. Then I'll respond to your written request." "That's fair. Tell her before then." "I will. Say it directly. I will tell Megan before Monday." I ended the call. On Sunday, Kevin didn't come over. He didn't call without a task either. At 7 that evening, Megan sent me a photograph of a dealership form. The top showed the Ford's vehicle identification number. The lower half had spaces for lien holder information, payoff amount, and signature. The dealership name had been cropped out. Her message said, "Sign this and return it to Kevin. We are trying to move forward." I enlarged the photograph. The signature line included language authorizing release of the lien upon whatever payment appeared in the blank above it. I replied, "I will not sign a blank release. The title clerk may contact me directly." She answered within a minute. "No one asked you to sign it blank. Kevin will fill it in. The lien holder fills in the payoff and signs after terms are confirmed. You are deliberately obstructing us. I'm following the agreement. You said you wouldn't stop the sale. I'm not stopping it. Then sign." "No!" she called. I let it ring once before answering. Her voice was tight. "You keep saying Kevin owns the choice, but every choice still has to go through you. The lien release goes through me because I'm the lien holder. You're enjoying this." "No." "You got a certified record. You hired another welder. You changed locks. You're building a case against your own family. I'm protecting my work and my records. From us?" "Yes." The word came out before I softened it. I didn't take it back. Megan became very quiet. Then she said, "At least you finally admitted it." "Admitted what?" "That you see us as the enemy. I see you asking me to sign an incomplete document after submitting false concerns about my capacity. We were worried. Then stop using worry to request money. This is about Kevin's property. Then let Kevin speak. He doesn't need your permission to have a wife. No. He needs to make his own request." She ended the call. Monday morning came without a message from Kevin. At 9, I answered his email. I stated that the sale remained subject to the recorded lien. I said a current payoff would be provided directly to a verified purchaser or title clerk before transfer. I would sign nothing with blank terms. I did not include the amount. I copied Megan because the cropped form had come from her. 10 minutes later, Kevin called. "You didn't have to copy her. She was already involved. She thinks I lied to her. Did you? I told her the balance was probably manageable. That isn't a number. It was enough for her to make plans. That was your choice. He lowered his voice. She's furious. With me? With both of us. What are you going to do? I don't know. For once, decide before she does. He didn't answer. That afternoon, a courier envelope appeared under my garage door. Inside was the same dealership form, this time with the dealership name covered by a strip of white paper. The payoff line was still blank. A yellow note was stuck above my signature line. Your refusal is the only thing delaying Kevin's money. My new strategy had worked. They could no longer reach the title through hints, family concern, or an incomplete form. Now the paper title and my refusal to release it were the only targets they could see. Kevin came by that evening and asked for the envelope. I handed it to him on the porch. He removed the covered dealership form and read the yellow note. Did you write this? I asked. No. Did Megan? He peeled the note from the paper. I don't know. You recognize her handwriting? Yes. Then you know. He folded the note in half. She's frustrated. That doesn't make the form complete. She says the dealership needs your signature before they'll finalize anything. Then their title clerk can contact me. They don't want to chase a private lane holder. That's part of buying a vehicle with a lane. Kevin looked past me through the open door. Can I come in? Yes. He followed me to the kitchen. I made coffee, but he didn't touch his. He set the form between us. What would it take for you to sign this tonight? A verified buyer, a written payoff request, and payment of the balance. They're a dealership. I can't see which one. He rubbed his forehead. Megan covered the name because she thought you'd call and ruin the offer. Did you agree with her? I didn't know she covered it until you sent the email. Why haven't you told me the dealer's name? Because every time I tell you something, you add another condition. The conditions were in the agreement 3 years ago. He pushed his chair back slightly. Just tell me the payoff. You asked for it in writing. I answered with the process. You didn't give me the number. Is there a signed sale? No. Then there's no final payoff request. The number doesn't change because a paper gets signed. Your payment deadline changes it. He looked up. You're going to add more if I miss that? I'll credit anything you pay before the sale. His face showed me what I needed to know. You're not making the payment, I said. The railing client held back part of the invoice. Why? He wants changes. Are the changes part of the original job? Kevin stared into his coffee. Some of them? Then finish the work. I am. How much of the payment did you receive? Not enough. Where did it go? Payroll, steel, fuel. And Megan's materials? That was last week. It's still money. He stood and walked to the window above the sink. I didn't come here for an audit. You came for my signature. He turned around. Do you hear yourself? Yes. You'd rather have a dealership call you like some bank than talk to your own son. We are talking. No, you're waiting for me to say the wrong thing so you can put it in another folder. That hurt because there was some truth in it. I had begun recording everything. I had reasons. Those reasons didn't make it feel like family. I closed the folder beside me, then no notes. Tell me what you want. He stood by the sink for a long time. Finally, he said, I want to sell the truck, pay what I have to pay, and stop feeling like every bad month puts me back at your kitchen table. That's direct. I also want enough left to keep my business running. That depends on the offer and what you owe. I know. Does Megan? He looked away. I said, you can't make the balance disappear by keeping the number vague. I know. Then tell her the sale won't produce what she expects. She'll say you set the price too high. The price was in the agreement she watched you sign. She'll say we were grieving. Were you unable to understand it? No. Was I? His head came up. That's not fair. It's the question her paperwork raised. I told her not to file. She didn't. Then let that go. I will when she does. He picked up the covered form. I'm not asking you to forgive the balance anymore. What are you asking? Don't make this harder than it has to be. I won't. Then if the dealer calls, answer. I will. Give them the payoff. I will. Release the title when you're paid. I will. He nodded. That was the cleanest conversation we'd had about the sale. Then he said, Megan doesn't want me coming over after this. What do you want? I don't want to keep choosing between my wife and my father. I didn't ask you to. You don't have to ask. He walked toward the front door. I followed him to the porch. Before he stepped outside, I said, "You can call me without needing a repair, a payment delay, or a signature." He put one hand on the doorknob. "Maybe I don't know how anymore." "Then start with hello." He opened the door. "I've got to go." He left the coffee untouched. The next morning, Megan called. "I'm going to ask you one last time," she said. "Will you release the title so Kevin can complete the sale when the balance is paid?" That means no. It means payment and release happen together. The dealer's money doesn't get released until they have clear title. Then their title clerk will arrange the payoff. They aren't going to pay you separately. A licensed dealer handles lien payoffs every day. You don't know their process. "Then tell me who they are." She paused. "You'll find out when you need to. That's not how this works. It can work very simply. You sign the paper, Kevin receives the money, he pays you. That would make my secured balance an unsecured promise. He's your son. He's already behind. You really think he would take the money and refuse to pay you? I think the money has already been promised to too many places." Her voice cooled. "This is the last chance to handle it privately." "It is private. You know what I mean. I know you don't want the dealer to see the lien. They can see it. Then let them call." She ended the call. For the next 4 days, I heard nothing. I kept the garage locked. I finished a brake job, replaced an alternator, and rebuilt an air compressor governor. Each morning, I checked my bank account. Kevin's payment didn't arrive. When the 2-week deadline passed, I sent one message: "Payment not received. No further grace is granted. Existing agreement and lien remain in effect." Kevin read it at 9:38. He didn't respond. That afternoon, Megan sent a photograph of the Ford parked in their driveway. The message beneath it said, "You're willing to lose your son over this." I didn't answer. The truck looked clean. Someone had washed it and dressed the tires. Dawn's blue paint reflected the side of the house. I saved the photograph, then closed my phone. Sunday came and went. On Monday evening, I almost called Kevin. I sat at the kitchen table with his number open on the screen. I could have asked about the railing job. I could have asked whether he'd eaten. I could have pretended I didn't know his payment was late. That was how I usually reopened the door. I found a problem small enough to discuss and offered myself as the solution. I put the phone down. If he wanted contact, he knew how to begin. Tuesday morning, I was working beneath a Freightliner when Central Star Motors reached me. It was the call I told you about. After the title clerk said the Ford was already at the dealership, I asked her what Kevin had signed. "A dealer bill of sale," she said. "He accepted our purchase offer and surrendered the keys. So he represented the sale as complete." "Yes, sir, subject to title clearance." "Did he disclose my lien?" "Not on the purchasing paperwork. We found it during the title review." I stood beside the Freightliner with the shop rag wrapped around my hand. "Who is there now?" "The purchasing manager is here. Mr. Anderson and his wife were asked to return." "Have they?" "They're on the way." "What happens if I don't release the lien?" "We can't complete the purchase." "Mr. Anderson would need to cancel and recover the vehicle. Have any funds been paid?" "No. The full purchase amount is being held." That meant Kevin hadn't received the money. It also meant he had committed the truck without telling me, just as Megan said they would. I asked, "Did he tell you I'd release without direct payment?" The clerk paused. "He said the family lien would be resolved privately." There it was. Privately meant after Kevin had the money. Privately meant where no title clerk could ask why the agreement wasn't being followed. I said, "I will not provide an unsecured release. I understand. Can you give me a payoff amount? I'll bring the paper title and ledger. You can email the figure. I want to see the purchase paperwork first." "That's reasonable. We'll need to resolve it today. The vehicle is occupying our intake bay, and the funds can't remain pending indefinitely." "How long do I have?" The purchasing manager asked everyone to be here by 3. I looked at the clock. It was 9:26. "I'll be there." After we hung up, I called Kevin. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, Dad." The words sounded careful. I said, "Where's the Ford?" A short pause followed. "At the dealership." "For an appraisal?" "We're working through some things." "Have you signed anything?" Megan spoke in the background. "Don't answer questions he already knows." Kevin moved away from her. He said, "They made an offer." "That wasn't my question. I signed the preliminary paperwork. The title clerk says it's a bill of sale." He went silent. I said, "You gave them the keys?" "Yes." "Why didn't you disclose the lien?" "I told them there was family paperwork. You told me you would disclose it. I thought we could handle the balance after. You thought I'd release first. I thought you'd trust me. You asked me to become unsecured after missing the deadline." His voice tightened. "Please don't do this over the phone. You did it without a phone call." Megan spoke again, closer now. "We're going to the dealership. He can either help or explain himself there." Kevin said, "Dad, just bring the title. I'll bring the title." His relief came through in his breath. Then I added, "I'm also bringing the ledger." Megan said, "Of course you are." The call ended. I closed the garage for the afternoon and rescheduled one customer. He needed his truck for work and wasn't pleased. I gave him the number of another mechanic and lost the job. That was the professional cost. The truck was the other one. If I refused every possible resolution, the Ford might return to Kevin. But nothing between us would improve. He would still owe me. Megan would still push him to sell. I would keep using the lien to hold a truck I had already admitted was his choice. If I accepted direct payoff, the Ford would leave the family. Dawn's work would go with it. So would the last machine we had restored together. I went into the house and poured one glass of bourbon. I drank it slowly at the kitchen table. There was no toast, and nobody to hear one. Then I rinsed the glass and put it away. In the garage, I opened the lockbox. I removed the paper title, the agreement, and the ledger. I placed them in a plain document envelope. Before closing the box, I rested my hand on Dawn's notebook. I didn't open it. I had already decided what victory meant now. Kevin would be allowed to sell the truck. I would not save it by surrendering the debt, and I would not save him from the choice he had made. I locked the box, picked up the envelope, and headed for Central Star Motors. The dealership was 20 minutes from my house. I arrived at 10:15 and parked near the service entrance. The Ford sat behind a chain barrier beside the intake building. It had a paper stock number under the windshield wiper. I stayed in my truck for a moment and looked at it. Dawn's paint still held its shine. Kevin had cleaned the wheels. The old Ford looked ready for somebody else's driveway. A dealership employee had placed a plastic cover over the driver's seat. That bothered me more than I expected. Dawn had spent 3 weekends finding the right blue material for that bench. I got out and carried the envelope into the main building. The receptionist directed me through a hallway to the title office. The room was small. 2 metal desks faced opposite walls. A printer sat on a cabinet between them. The clerk from the phone stood when I entered. "Mr. Anderson?" "Yes." She introduced herself, then pointed to a chair beside her desk. A man came through the other doorway carrying a purchase folder. "I'm Aaron Garrett," he said. "I manage vehicle purchasing." We shook hands. He looked at the envelope in my hand. "You brought the original title?" "I brought it. I haven't agreed to release it." "Understood." He sat across from me. "I'd like to keep this simple," Aaron said. We purchased the truck based on Mr. Anderson's representation that he could provide clear title. "Our review found your recorded lien. Until that lien is resolved, no funds leave this office and the vehicle doesn't enter our inventory." "Did Kevin tell you the lien was already satisfied?" "No. He described it as family paperwork that would be cleared after payment. That wasn't our agreement." Aaron opened the purchase folder. "I'm not asking you to ignore your agreement. I need to confirm what it requires." He handed me a copy of the dealer bill of sale. Kevin's signature appeared at the bottom. The date was the day before. The purchase price was $18,000. The section asking about liens had been marked no. I looked at Aaron. "Who marked that?" "Mr. Anderson completed the seller disclosure. Did your buyer ask him directly?" "Yes." "What did Kevin say?" "He said the paper title was being held by his father for safekeeping." I kept my face still. Aaron continued. "Our buyer should have stopped there. He didn't. That's our mistake. The title review caught it before payment." "Who has the keys?" "We do." "Did Kevin sign anything else?" "A mileage statement and authorization to inspect. Nothing that changes your lien." I read the bill of sale from top to bottom. It didn't contain a penalty that trapped Kevin. If the dealer couldn't obtain clear title, the purchase could be canceled and the truck returned. The dealer wasn't trying to take it from him. Kevin had put himself in that room by signing before he had what he promised. I handed the copy back. Aaron said, "May I see your documents?" I removed the title first. The clerk checked the vehicle identification number against the state record. Then she examined the lien entry on the front. "This matches," she said. I gave her the installment agreement. She read the payment section and passed it to Aaron. He asked, "Is the account in default? A payment deadline passed yesterday. Does that change the payoff? No penalty, no added fee." He looked at me. "You're not claiming collection costs?" "No." "Storage?" "The truck hasn't been stored with me." "Repair charges?" Those were separate. I could have tried to include the mobile welding bill. Kevin had said he would pay it. I could have added the gasket or other small things he owed. I didn't. Those weren't secured by the truck agreement. I removed the ledger. The pages showed every payment from the transfer onward. Dawn had taught me to use one ink color for money received and another for notes. I'd continued that habit after she died. Deferred payments were marked with dates. Partial payments were credited when received. Nothing had been erased. The clerk placed the ledger beside a calculator. "Do you have a payoff figure?" she asked. $9,600. This was the first time I'd stated it to anyone at the dealership. She checked the ledger line by line. The partial amount Kevin had sent had covered an earlier overdue installment I had carried separately during the standing grace. When I ended that grace, I applied it to the oldest due amount. The secured principal shown on the title ledger remained $9,600. The clerk compared my figures with the agreement. Then she turned the calculator toward Aaron. $9,600 is supported. That removed the last uncertainty. I hadn't miscounted. I hadn't claimed more than the agreement allowed. The dealership could see exactly where the figure came from. Aaron leaned back. "If we complete the purchase, we can issue the lien payoff directly to you from the purchase funds. That's what I require. The remainder goes to Kevin." "Yes." "You'll sign the release once the payoff is issued?" "Once I have written confirmation that the payment is directed to me and can't be redirected." The clerk nodded. "We can print the disbursement instruction and the dealer check before you sign. Then I'll sign after I review them." Aaron closed the agreement. "That is a normal lien payoff. I don't see a problem on your side." I didn't feel relieved. The rule worked. That didn't tell me what Kevin would do when he learned the rule would be followed. I asked, "What happens if he cancels?" "We return the keys and vehicle. He leaves with no purchase funds." "Do you charge him?" "Not under this contract. We caught the title issue before reconditioning. So he can walk away." "Yes." That mattered. Kevin still had a choice. He could take the truck home and finish paying under the agreement, or he could complete the sale and accept what remained after the lien. Nobody was forcing him to sell. Aaron studied me for a moment. "Can I ask a personal question?" "You can ask. Are you trying to stop him from selling?" "No, because if you are, we can cancel now. I don't want a family fight in my title office. I'm not asking you to cancel." "What are you asking?" "Follow the ordinary process." He nodded. "That's what we'll do." The clerk began entering information into her computer. She asked for my mailing address and identification. I gave both. Then she printed a payoff acknowledgement. It stated the balance, identified the Ford, and said the dealer would pay me directly from its purchase funds if the seller chose to complete the sale. It was not a lien release. I signed the acknowledgement. The clerk made a copy for me. Aaron checked his watch. "Kevin said they could be here before noon. I thought the deadline was 3. It was. He moved faster once he learned you were coming." I looked through the interior window toward the hallway. "Did you tell him the payoff?" "No. I told him the lien holder had arrived with records. Keep the amount here until he arrives." Aaron raised an eyebrow. "Why?" "His wife doesn't know the exact balance." "Does he?" "He has the agreement and his payment history." That wasn't my question. I understood what he meant. Kevin should know. I'm no longer sure what he has chosen not to calculate. Aaron tapped one finger on the purchase folder. "I won't discuss their marriage. I will explain the transaction to both sellers at the same time. Megan isn't a seller. The vehicle is in Kevin's name. She attended the appraisal and today's purchase. She's coming with him." Then explain it in front of both. The clerk looked up from her computer. "Mr. Anderson, once they arrive, we'll need a clear decision. If they cancel, you leave with your documents and they leave with the truck. If they proceed, we prepare the 2 payments and you execute the lien release." "I understand. Do you want time to speak with your son privately first?" I thought about it. That would have been easier for Kevin. I could take him into the parking lot and tell him the balance before Megan heard it. He could prepare an explanation. He could ask me to reduce it where nobody else listened. It would also put us back in the same arrangement. He would ask privately. I would absorb the cost privately. Megan would receive the result without having to face the numbers. "No," I said. The decision belongs in the room where he made the sale. Aaron nodded once. We waited. At 11:20, the clerk received a phone call from the front desk. "They're here," she said. Aaron stood. Before he opened the door, he looked at me. "I need to ask one more thing. If Kevin decides to cancel, will you let him leave without making a scene?" "Yes, and if he proceeds?" "I'll release the lien after direct payoff." "Nothing more?" "Nothing more. I had the consultant intake in my truck. I had Megan's messages, the covered form, the draft petition, and the note accusing me of delaying Kevin's money. I could have brought all of it inside. I could have shown Aaron exactly why I didn't trust them. I could have embarrassed Megan before she had the chance to say a word. That would not clear the title. It would only make the room crueler. I left those papers in my truck. The ledger was enough. Aaron opened the office door. Kevin entered first. Megan came behind him carrying her laptop bag. Kevin saw the original title on the clerk's desk. Then he saw my ledger beside it. His shoulders lowered slightly, as if some part of him had hoped I'd bring one without the other. Megan looked at the payoff acknowledgement face down near my hand. She took the chair across from me. Kevin remained standing. Aaron closed the door and said, "Everyone is here because we have two ways to resolve this. Before we discuss either one, I want it understood that the dealership will not release purchase funds until the recorded lien is cleared." Megan looked at me. I didn't look away. The one uncertainty was gone. My lien was valid, the payoff was supported, and the dealer would honor it. Using it would end the version of our family where Kevin expected me to bend before anyone else saw the cost. I left the title on the clerk's desk and waited for him to choose. Aaron placed the bill of sale in front of Kevin. "You signed this yesterday," he said. "Do you still intend to sell the vehicle for $18,000? Kevin looked at Megan. She answered for him. "Yes." Aaron didn't move. "I need the seller to answer." Kevin cleared his throat. "Yes." "Then we need to resolve the lien." Megan opened her laptop bag. We brought the release form. Harold refused to sign it because the payoff line was blank. "The lien holder should not sign a blank release," Aaron said. Her hand stopped inside the bag. "We were going to fill it in." "Based on what figure?" "The family balance." Aaron looked at Kevin. "Did you provide that figure?" "Not exactly." Megan pulled out the form and laid it beside the bill of sale. "It isn't complicated. Harold signs the release, Kevin receives the purchase funds, and we settle the balance with him privately." Aaron shook his head. "That is not how Central Star Motors will complete this transaction." "Why not?" "Because the lien is recorded. We pay the lien holder directly." Megan looked at me. "You told them to do that." "I told them I wouldn't release the line unsecured." "You made it sound like we were trying to avoid paying you." Aaron raised one hand. "I don't need to know what anyone intended. I need clear title before funds are released." "We can give you clear title," Megan said. "No, Mr. Anderson can release the lien. Those are two different things." Kevin finally sat down. He looked at the original title on the clerk's desk. "What happens if Dad signs our form?" Aaron answered. "I would still need a verified payoff or proof that the lien has already been satisfied. So his signature isn't enough? Not on a form with no amount and no payment record." Megan turned to the clerk. "You said on the phone that you needed his title and release. I also said we needed a payoff figure. He has one." "Yes." Megan's eyes moved to the acknowledgement near my hand. "How much?" I didn't answer. The clerk turned the acknowledgement face up and placed it in the center of the desk. "The verified payoff is $9,600. Megan stared at the figure. "No." The clerk said, "I checked it against the agreement in Ledger. That can't be right." Kevin closed his eyes for a second. Megan turned toward him. "You said it was probably around 5. I said I wasn't sure. You said most of the payments had been made. Most of the scheduled payments were deferred." She looked at me. "You counted the deferred payments twice. No. You added charges. No. Interest. No. Then show me." I slid the ledger across the desk. She didn't take it. The clerk did. "The payoff contains no late penalties, collection fee, storage charge, repair charge, or added interest," she said. "It is the secured principal supported by the payment record." Megan looked at Kevin. "You told me deferred meant he waived them. I told you he let me pay later." "No, you didn't." "Yes, I did." "When?" "At home, after the listing." "You said he always forgave things." "I said he usually helped." "That isn't the same thing." "I know." Her voice sharpened. "You know now." Aaron sat back and gave them a moment. Kevin rubbed both hands over his face. Megan looked at me again. You let us plan around the wrong number. I never gave you a number. That's the point. You had the agreement. You knew Kevin didn't keep the records. I gave him a copy. You knew he was struggling. Yes. You knew why we were selling. Yes. And you waited until we were sitting here to tell us. I kept my voice level. Kevin asked me to send the payoff only to him because you believed it was lower. I gave him time to tell you. Then you hid the dealership name and sent me a blank release. That was because you interfere. The title clerk called me because the lien was recorded. I didn't contact this dealership. Megan looked toward the clerk. Did he really not call you first? The clerk said. I contacted Mr. Anderson after the title review identified his lien. The room went quiet. Megan had treated my paperwork as something I used to control Kevin. Now, a person she had never met was explaining that the same record had stopped the dealer's money before I knew a sale had been signed. Aaron tapped the bill of sale. We have two options. Kevin can cancel the transaction and take the truck. No purchase funds will be released. Or Kevin can complete the sale, and we will deduct $9,600 for the lien payoff. Megan did the subtraction in her head. So, we get $8,400. Yes, that's less than half. It is exactly the remainder after payoff. We need the full amount, Aaron said. Then this transaction cannot provide it. She turned toward me. Reduce the payoff. No. Harold, be reasonable. I am claiming only what the agreement says. Take $5,000 now and let Kevin pay the rest later. No. Kevin spoke quietly. Dad. I looked at him. What? Could you do part now and part after the railing job? That would be another deferment. Just for a few weeks. You missed the last deadline. I know. You also signed a bill of sale after telling me no sale had been accepted. Megan cut in. He was trying to keep this from becoming exactly what you made it. I looked back at Kevin. Did you mark no liens on the seller disclosure? He nodded. Why? The buyer said family arrangements didn't always count. Aaron's expression changed. Which buyer said that? Kevin pointed vaguely toward the front of the building, the man who inspected it. Aaron wrote something on the purchase folder. He should not have told you that. The form asks about recorded liens. I mentioned paperwork. You did not disclose a recorded lien. Kevin looked at the floor. Megan said, Your employee encouraged him. Aaron replied, Our employee's mistake does not clear the title or erase the payoff. He wasn't rescuing me. He was protecting the dealership from buying a truck it couldn't title. That ordinary rule was enough. Megan leaned closer to Kevin. We should cancel. He looked at her. Then what? We sell it ourselves. To who? We had other messages. None of them offered this much. We'll wait. The steel bill is due. We'll work it out. With what? She lowered her voice, but everyone could still hear. You're not giving him over half. It's not giving. I owe it. You owe your business too. I know. And the materials. I know. You can't keep saying that. Kevin's face had gone red around his ears. For 3 years, I had stepped in before he reached this point. I would pay a bill, move a deadline, or fix a machine. The argument would end because I supplied what was missing. I could have done it again with one signature. I didn't. Aaron asked, Do you need a few minutes alone? Megan said, Yes. Kevin said, No. She stared at him. He looked at the Ford through the small window in the office door. Then he asked me, If I cancel, the agreement stays the same. Yes. The payment is still late. Yes. No more grace? No. And if I complete the sale, the lien is finished after the dealership pays the balance. He looked at the clerk. Dad gets $9,600 directly? Yes. And I get $8,400? Yes, Megan said. Kevin, don't. He didn't look at her. Aaron asked, Which option do you choose? Kevin kept his eyes on the bill of sale. Complete it. Megan pushed back from the desk. No, we didn't come here for $8,400. Kevin looked at her. I can't take the truck back and pretend the debt isn't there. We can find another buyer. The lien will still be there. We can negotiate with him. We did. You gave up. I signed the agreement. She stood. You are letting him take Mom's truck from you. Kevin's voice stayed low. I sold it. Those 3 words changed the room. He didn't blame me. He didn't call the sale an appraisal. He didn't say Megan had made him sign. He owned one choice. Megan looked at the door. Fine, do whatever you want. She walked into the hallway, but didn't leave the building. Aaron turned to the clerk. Prepare the disbursements. The clerk printed 2 payment instructions. The first directed $9,600 to me as lion holder. The second directed the remaining $8,400 to Kevin. She placed both in front of him. Please confirm the amounts. Kevin read them. His hand shook slightly when he picked up the pen. He signed beneath the seller authorization. The clerk turned the first page toward me. This confirms direct payment of the secured balance. Once you sign the lien release and surrender the original title, the dealer will process clear title. I read every line. The vehicle identification number matched. My name was correct. The amount was correct. The payment could not be redirected to Kevin. I signed the conditional release. Then I signed the lien section on the paper title. The clerk took both documents and made copies. Aaron left the office. A few minutes later, he returned with 2 dealer checks. He handed one to me, $9,600. I checked the name and amount. Then he handed the other to Kevin, $8,400. Kevin stared at his check. That was all he received from the sale he had already planned around. No one cheered. No one raised a voice. A printer ran behind the clerk, and somebody laughed in the hallway at something unrelated. The dealership had publicly deducted my legitimate payoff because that was the ordinary condition for clearing the lien. Nothing more was taken. Nothing was returned as a favor. Aaron signed the dealer section of the title paperwork. The clerk stamped the file copy and placed the original title into the transfer packet. Central Star Motors now has what it needs to apply for clear Texas title, she said. Kevin nodded. Aaron reached into the purchase folder and removed the truck keys. These are now dealer inventory keys. He clipped a white stock tag to the ring and handed them to an employee waiting at the door. The employee walked outside. Through the office window, I watched him open the Ford and start it. The old engine settled into the steady idle dawn, and I had worked months to hear. Kevin watched too. Megan had returned to the doorway. Her arms were folded. The employee drove the truck away from the intake barrier and turned toward the dealership's secured inventory lot. Kevin's name remained on the bill of sale. My lien was paid. The truck passed under the open gate on clear title paperwork, and neither Kevin nor I had any claim left to bring it home. Megan was waiting beside Kevin's car when we walked outside. Aaron stopped at the curb. The transaction is complete, he told Kevin. If you have questions about the check, call the number on the receipt. Kevin nodded. Aaron shook my hand, then went back inside. He had performed one function. He made sure the dealership bought a truck it could legally title. He didn't tell Kevin he was wrong or tell Megan to apologize. That wasn't his job. Megan watched him leave. Then she looked at the envelope containing my check. Give Kevin part of it, Kevin said. Megan, no, we're not leaving until we fix this. I put the envelope inside my jacket. There's nothing to fix. You took $9,600. I received the secured balance from a truck Dawn helped restore. Yes, you didn't do all that work alone. I never said I did. Then why do you get paid for all of it? The payment wasn't for restoration labor. It satisfied Kevin's purchase agreement. She stepped closer. You're profiting from her work. I recovered what Kevin owed. No more. You sold it to him too high in the first place. Kevin looked toward the dealership doors. I said, you sat at my kitchen table when he signed. I trusted you. You questioned the agreement that day because it was wrong. Then you shouldn't have encouraged him to sign. She turned to Kevin. Say something. He held his check in both hands. Dad, could you give us some of it back? The question hurt more coming from him. How much? I don't know. Enough to cover the materials. That isn't a figure. He looked at Megan. She said, 5,000? I almost laughed, but nothing about the moment was funny. You asked me to reduce the payoff to 5 inside. Now you want 5 back. That would leave you with more than half. This isn't a split. It should be. Why? Because we're family. I looked at Kevin. Do you agree? He took a long breath. I think you could help. I have helped. That's not an answer. It's the same answer you gave me when I asked why you took the truck to a dealership without telling me. His face tightened. Megan said, there it is. Punishment. No, the lien is finished. So are the deferments. You got your money. Why are you still angry? I'm not discussing my feelings with you in a dealership parking lot, because you know what you did. I looked at Kevin again. If you want to talk, call me when you're alone. Megan laughed once. Of course. Separate him from his wife. Kevin said, "Stop." She faced him. "Are you coming?" He put the check in his pocket. Then he said to me, "I need some time. So do I." He walked to the passenger side of their car. Megan got behind the wheel. Before she shut the door, she said, "Don't expect us for Sunday dinner." I didn't answer. They drove away with $8,400 and no truck. I went directly to my bank. The teller placed a standard hold on part of the dealer check. I asked her to print the deposit receipt. The money wasn't a windfall. It closed an account that had remained open for 3 years. Back at the garage, I entered the dealership payment in the ledger. On the final line, I wrote, "Balance paid by Central Star Motors from purchase funds." Then, I prepared a receipt for Kevin. It stated that the secured balance had been paid in full and that I claimed no further lien against the Ford. I mailed one copy to him and sent another by email. He didn't reply. The next morning, I removed the truck agreement from my active accounts folder. I did not throw it away. I put it with completed records in the bottom drawer of my desk. Dawn's notebook remained on the workbench. For several days, nothing happened. I went to work. I changed oil, replaced belts, and diagnosed a hard-starting diesel pickup. I hired the mobile welder for one exhaust bracket and paid his invoice that afternoon. Nobody missed a deadline because Kevin and I weren't speaking. That was useful. It was also quiet. On Friday, Megan emailed me. The subject line said, "Money owed to Kevin." There was no greeting. She wrote that Dawn's contributions had increased the truck's value and that half my payoff should be treated as Kevin's share of his mother's work. She asked me to transfer $4,800 by Monday. The math was exact. The reasoning wasn't. I replied with 3 sentences. The dealer payoff satisfied Kevin's written secured balance. The lien has been released and I claim nothing further against the truck. I will not return any portion of the payoff. She responded almost immediately. "Then we have nothing else to discuss." I saved the message. I didn't answer. Monday passed without another demand. On Tuesday evening, Kevin called. I was in the garage cleaning a set of injectors. "Did you get Megan's email?" he asked. "Yes." "She shouldn't have sent it like that. Do you agree with it?" He didn't answer. I turned off the cleaning machine. "Kevin, I think Mom would have wanted us to work something out. Your mother isn't here to settle a debt you signed after she died. You always say that when her opinion doesn't help you. No, I say it when one of us tries to borrow her voice." He became quiet. I said, "Tell me what you think." "Not what Dawn would think. I think $9,600 was a lot to take at once. It was owed at once because you sold the security. I know how the lien works. You do now. That's unnecessary." "So?" "Was marking no liens." He exhaled. "We had a plan." "I know." "No, you don't. The renovation client was supposed to pay after the first stage. Then we could put the money back into my business. You were financing the first stage with your welding money, temporarily. What would have happened if the client refused the work? That's not what happened. Did the client pay?" Another silence. "Not all of it," he said. "What happened?" She changed the scope. Megan or the client? The client. She decided to do the kitchen later. So Megan bought materials for work that was postponed. Some can be returned. Some, there's a restocking fee. I waited. He said, "We're handling it, then handle it." His voice hardened. "You could say one supportive thing. I got your welder running without paying your bill. I accepted a late payment date. I allowed you to make your own decision about the truck." "Which kind of support are you asking for now?" He didn't answer. "Money?" I asked. "No." "A free repair?" "No." Then asked directly. He was quiet long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Finally, he said, "I wanted to know if you were okay." That was almost contact without a task. Almost. "I'm working," I said. "The garage feels empty." "Yeah. How are you?" "Not good. What do you need?" He laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. "You just asked me not to call with a need. I asked what you need because you said you're not good. I don't know what to say to you anymore. Start with what's true. What's true is Megan thinks you humiliated us. What do you think? I think you could have warned me about the amount. You asked me not to tell her before you did. I know. You had time. I know. You signed the sale anyway. I know." He said it 3 times, but it still wasn't accountability. It was exhaustion. I said, "Knowing isn't the same as owning it." He became quiet. Then he asked, "Are you going to help us if the client doesn't pay?" "No." The answer came cleanly. No loan? He asked. No, not even short term. No family financing. No deferred payments. No bills paid through me. He breathed through his nose. What about the shop truck? It needs front brakes soon. I can tell you what parts to buy. Will you install them? Not for free. You'd charge your own son labor? Yes. He gave a small, disbelieving laugh. So, everything really is business now. No, business is business now. You can still come for dinner. Megan won't. I invited you. You know I can't just leave her home. That's your choice. You keep saying that, because you keep asking me to make it for you. He didn't speak. Then he said, I've got to go. Good night, Kevin. He ended the call without saying it back. A week later, I learned what scaling back looked like because Megan's renovation trailer appeared in Kevin's shop yard with unopened boxes stacked inside. I drove past on my way to a parts supplier. I didn't stop. Kevin called that afternoon. You saw the trailer? Yes. She returned what she could. Did the client cancel? No. Megan reduced the job to paint and flooring. That's work she can complete without carrying as much material. She lost money. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? Yes. I didn't want her business to fail. You just wouldn't help save it. Those are different things. He didn't argue. Megan stopped speaking to me after her email. She didn't call. She didn't come to the garage. When I sent a short message on her birthday, she replied with thanks and nothing else. I accepted that as the relationship she was willing to have. Kevin called twice over the next month. Both calls involved practical questions. The first was about the engine drive. I told him where to check the ground and let him do it. The second was about brake parts. I gave him 2 part numbers. When he asked if I could get them cheaper, I said yes, but I would not put them on my account. He bought them himself. Neither conversation lasted longer than 5 minutes. One Sunday, I cooked chicken again out of habit. I set one place at the kitchen table, then caught myself reaching for 2 more plates. I put them back. After dinner, I took my coffee to the garage and sat on Dawn's stool. The bay where the Ford used to sit held a customer's plain white work van. It needed a water pump in the morning. I opened Dawn's notebook, but I didn't read the restoration pages. Inside the back cover, she had written our grocery list from the last week we worked on the truck. Coffee, onions, bread, soap, oranges. Ordinary things. My phone stayed silent on the workbench. Kevin had lost the truck, the full sale proceeds, and the protection he expected from me. Megan had lost the capital she built her plan around and refused to accept why. I had recovered the balance. I had also lost the excuse Kevin and I had used to keep calling each other. For the first time, if contact came back, it would have to arrive without a broken machine attached to it. 6 weeks later, Kevin pulled into my driveway on a Saturday morning. He came in his work truck. The front brakes had already been replaced. He parked near the street and walked toward the garage carrying 2 cups of coffee. I was changing a belt tensioner on a delivery truck. He stopped outside the open bay. Can I come in? Yes. He placed 1 coffee on my workbench. I didn't know what you wanted, so I got it black. That's fine. He looked around the garage. The mobile welder's card was still taped inside the parts cabinet. My scheduling board showed 3 jobs for the following week. Kevin nodded toward the delivery truck. You need help? No. All right. He sat on the stool beside the workbench, not Dawn's stool. I finished tightening the mounting bolts and checked the belt alignment. Kevin waited. He didn't offer advice. He didn't open a drawer. He didn't ask for a tool. When I finished, I washed my hands and picked up the coffee. What brings you here? I wanted to talk. About what? The sale. I leaned against the workbench. He looked at his cup. Megan doesn't know I'm here. That's between you and Megan. I know. What do you want from me? Nothing. I waited. He took a breath. I lied on the dealer form. I know. I knew the lien was recorded. I thought if they accepted the truck, you'd release it rather than make me look bad in front of them. I said nothing. He continued. I marked no liens because Megan said family paperwork wasn't a real lien. I knew that wasn't true. Why did you go along with it? Because I wanted the full check. His voice was quiet, but the answer was direct. I thought we'd pay you something afterward, he said. Then when the material job paid, we'd catch up. The client had already reduced the work, not when we took the truck in, but the risk was there. Yes. He rubbed his thumb along the edge of the coffee lid. I expected you to take the risk. That's the truth. I looked at the delivery truck behind him. Kevin said, I've been telling myself Megan pushed me. She did push. But I signed everything. I gave them the keys. I left the lien off the form. Yes. I also knew she thought the balance was lower. I didn't correct her because I wanted her to stop asking. What did you think would happen when she learned? I thought you'd reduce it. There it was. Not confusion, not grief, not a disagreement over what Dawn wanted. He had counted on me to surrender before he had to tell his wife the truth. Kevin placed his coffee on the floor. I'm sorry. I nodded once. He looked up. That's all? What do you expect me to say? I don't know. Do you expect forgiveness today? No. Do you expect me to return money? No. Do you expect free work or another loan? No. Then what are you asking for? A chance to stop doing this. Doing what? Calling only when something's broken, hiding things until you fix them. Letting Megan ask for what I'm too embarrassed to ask for. I picked up my coffee again. That won't stop because you apologized once. I know. It stops when you act differently. I know that too. He reached into his shirt pocket and removed a folded check. He placed it on the workbench. It was made out to me for $340. The welding bill, he said. I caused that. I looked at the check. Can you afford it? Yes. Did you take it from Megan's business money? No. I finished the railing changes and collected the rest of my invoice. Does she know you're paying me? Yes. What did she say? That I was letting you win. I slid the check back toward him. He didn't take it. You said I owed it, he said. You did. Then take it. I picked up the check and placed it beside my deposit book. That payment didn't repair our relationship. It did close a promise he had made before asking for anything new. Kevin stayed for another 20 minutes. We talked about the railing job. He told me the client had changed the landing height after the first inspection. He had rebuilt one section without arguing and been paid for the change. When he stood to leave, I said, "You can come for dinner next Sunday." He hesitated. Just me? The invitation is for both of you. I'm not asking you to choose. Megan won't come. Then you decide whether you will. He nodded. I'll let you know. Tell me by Saturday. I won't cook for people who haven't answered. A small smile appeared. Fair. He took his empty coffee cup to the trash without asking where it was. Then he left. On Saturday afternoon, he texted, I'll come tomorrow. Megan isn't ready, I replied. Dinner at 5. He arrived at 4:58 carrying bread. We ate chicken, potatoes, and green beans. I didn't bring out the truck ledger. He didn't talk about Megan's renovation work. After dinner, he washed the plates while I dried them. It wasn't forgiveness. It was one meal that happened as arranged. The following week, Central Star Motors mailed me a copy of the completed title transfer record. The lien showed released. The dealer check had fully cleared. I placed the record with the completed agreement. Nothing remained tied to the Ford. No payment, no release, no signature. No reason for Kevin to call me about it. 2 weeks later, he called on a Wednesday night. I answered from the kitchen. Something wrong? I asked. No. Need a part number? No. A repair? No. I waited. He said, I was driving back from Killeen and thought I'd call. All right. We talked for 12 minutes. He told me about a gate he'd built for a warehouse. I told him the delivery truck had returned because the driver hit a curb and blamed the steering. Kevin laughed. Then he said, I've got to get home. Drive safely. I will. Good night, Dad. Good night. That was the first call in years where neither of us gave the other a task. The new pattern didn't hold perfectly. A month later, Kevin asked if I could put a set of batteries on my shop account. They're cheaper through you, he said. They are. Can I pay you Friday? No. He became quiet. Then he said, All right. Can I pay the supplier directly and have them delivered to your garage? Yes. He did. When the batteries arrived, I let him use the lift for 1 hour. He installed them himself and swept the bay afterward. He didn't ask me to absorb the price. I didn't offer. Another time, he brought his work truck for a brake inspection. I wrote an estimate like I would for anyone else. He read it at the counter. You're charging full labor. Yes. He nodded. Schedule me for Thursday. He arrived on time and paid when the job was finished. Afterward, we ate sandwiches in the garage. The invoice was already closed, so it didn't sit between us. Megan remained distant. She didn't return to Sunday dinner. She didn't apologize for the intake, the draft petition, or the blank release. I didn't chase her for one. Kevin said she had reduced her renovation work to jobs where clients paid deposits. She handled painting, flooring, and smaller repairs. She stopped using his welding account for materials. That was an action. It wasn't reconciliation. On their anniversary, I mailed one card addressed to both of them. Megan signed the thank you text with her own name. That was the full extent of our contact. I could live with it. Kevin continued coming to dinner once or twice a month. Sometimes he brought food. Sometimes I cooked. If he needed advice, he asked for advice. If he needed labor, he asked for a price. Once he stood beside the empty space in the garage and said, "I miss the Ford. So do I. Do you ever wish you'd stopped the sale?" "Yes." He looked at me. I said, "Wishing isn't the same as changing my answer." He nodded. "I know." We didn't discuss what Dawn would have wanted. We didn't need to borrow her opinion. The truck was gone. The payoff stayed paid. The subsidy did not return. What returned was smaller and slower. A phone call without a repair. A dinner answered before Saturday. A bill paid before the work began. If you stayed with me this far, tell me what you thought in the comments. And subscribe if you'd like to hear another story like mine. One evening after Kevin left, I went back into the garage. He had brought no broken equipment and asked for no money. We had eaten meatloaf at the kitchen table and spent most of dinner arguing about the best way to brace a steel gate. The center bay was empty. I had no overnight job waiting, and the concrete had been swept clean. Dawn's notebook rested on the workbench where she first placed it in 2018. I opened to the page about our first drive. Her handwriting leaned slightly uphill. A dark thumbprint covered part of the paint code. Beneath it, she had noted that Kevin returned grinning and that I pretended not to notice. I could hear the side door settling in its frame. Outside, Kevin's work truck started and moved down East Barton Avenue. I turned the final pages. Parts, measurements, grocery lists, and small corrections filled them. Nothing on those pages asked me to keep paying for a place in my son's life. I closed Dawn's grease-marked notebook and placed it inside my steel toolbox beside the empty garage bay.